Oh, no, we're just going to go straight to live. Okay, that's fine. Sorry about that. We'll get it next time. You'll get your countdown next time. Let me share the StreamYard. We have one guest already we're going to bring up in a moment.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Let me see. Okay, yeah, that's distracting. Sorry, it was.
I see some people are already watching the stream. Welcome, welcome.
Yep. Let me do this, and then I will
Oh,
invite
Dax, the commoner.
copy.
Hmm.
Okay, so there is the StreamYard. I'm going to bring a guest up already, but I will share it again when we are finished, and then I will share this in the comments in the Discord server. Okay, and if you what is it, Mojo? If you want to do it through StreamYard, you can. Though you can just stay where you are too, and I can put you on stage that way too. So it's up to you. But I'll. Okay. All right. All right. There we go. Oh, and I did just think of an issue actually.
Oh no, what's that?
It's that you'll be able to hear them, but they won't be able to hear you.
That is an issue.
Yeah. Way to
Well,
catch that
what are you
last second.
using
Wait.
OBS
Um.
to?
No. It's just
Hmm.
in the Discord server.
Hmm.
Let's try it though. Let's see how it goes. Let's see. Video file. Okay. I don't know that this is gonna work, but let's try it. Okay, so this is Mojo. Mojo, can you hear me?
Sushi's volume is low. Thanks, Chase.
And you are on right now. I might have to.
Okay, Habibi.
How's it going?
No problem. You're taking a big risk with the people here.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a little bit new here.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Is my volume better now?
Risky business, man. I've heard some crazy things here already.
You said you're new. Yeah. I can hear you, Sushi, but I guess Chase
Okay.
can't hear you.
Okay. The Discord is really quiet too. Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Sushi. How are you going to be called sushi and not be Japanese? I associate it with sushi.
So it's funny. It's because my actual name is close to it, and my partner's son had started calling me it to make fun of me, and I'm like, you know what? I actually really like that. So now I'm sushi.
Yeah, so you probably didn't hear any of that, did you, Mojo?
Oh
I can just hear you.
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, so that's not gonna work then.
Okay.
DM the guy on Discord. Yeah, I did that. If you want, you can go to the StreamYard, Mojo. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to take you down off the screen. I mean, you're welcome to stay in this room, but there is a StreamYard. If you want to click on that and come up on stage that way, you're more than welcome. I'll leave that up to
How
you.
do I do this? This is very new to me. Okay, I'll try it.
There should be a comments if you go to the top. There's like a little bubble looking thing. You can click on that, and the comments will pop up. And then the StreamYard is the second one.
Okay.
So let me take you down really quick. So stop screen share. Okay, that was a monumentous failure, but that's fine.
It's okay. I mean, growing pains, man. We got to learn somehow, right?
Yeah. Mojo's volume is low. Well, hopefully it comes. So is Sushi still low?
Am I still low?
I'm gonna figure that out though. There's got to be a way to do that.
Yes, I'm okay. Hey, there's Mojo. I see him on
Hey,
the.
Mojo, what's up?
There, yeah. We have to add him to stage. Well, he can still hear us, right? Yeah. You just can't.
How you doing?
Awesome.
Mojo, how's your day?
Do you want to bring him to stage?
Oh
Yes.
yeah. Let's do that first.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
I'll come here out of
And
nowhere.
louder. Okay, I'm gonna mute this really quick. Okay. Yeah, so Mojo, this is SC. It's just where we listen to somebody who makes a claim about what their
Okay.
confidence level is and how they arrived at that confidence level. That's the essence of it. So do you have a claim that you would want to like explore or discuss with us?
Claim. No, I'm kind of new here, man. Maybe you got the wrong guy. I don't know.
So,
What kind of
so
claim should I have? I mean,
something that you believe, right? So we tend to like deeply held beliefs. So something that you are like, yes, I know this is definitely true. Usually something most people pick something around politics or religion, but it can be literally like anything. So like if you have a belief in that Trump is the best president, or that 9/11 didn't happen, that there is a God, anything of that nature. We can explore
I
something like
got
that.
you. Okay.
Hmm.
Kind of sensational things a little bit.
It can
Yeah,
be
that
whatever that
makes it
you
more
want.
interesting, sure, but
Yeah.
whatever you want. Yeah.
The topic today is flat Earth, but unless you're a flat
Flat
earther,
Earth.
then
Okay, flat Earth.
unless you happen to think the Earth is flat, then don't go with that.
I happen to be one of those sheep that just believe what I'm told. I accept that the Earth is round. Not because
Yeah,
I have any personal evidence, but because I've been overwhelmingly told so. Is there anything wrong with that?
I think I'm the same way, but it depends on, I guess, who we're listening to.
Okay, but it's interesting for me to speak to Americans. I like speaking to Americans. You guys from a very different world to me, and I
Oh,
find it
whereabout in
really.
the world are
Yeah,
you from?
I'm originally from Egypt. That's where I was born.
Oh, awesome.
Um,
Very cool.
but I went to Europe after that, and now I work in Japan. So
Oh.
I've been everywhere except America.
Might be better that way.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's strange to us too, so don't worry. I think even Americans are like, what is going on over here?
yeah, it's a pretty chaotic place. But it's interesting for me because the place I grew up in was very anti-American, underneath like the tourist level. Like the American influence was very politically decried,
Hmm.
particularly by a lot of the fundamentalist people. Like Americans are the devil over there. But I
Yeah.
guess since I left and since I wasn't too connected, I'm kind of half foreign as well. I'm half English, so I never bought too much into that. So now it's interesting to speak to Americans and to see the separation, the massive separation from the degeneracy that America is unleashing onto my area of the world where I'm from, versus
Mm.
what the people are actually like, and what the people
Yeah.
actually believe.
That sounds like there might be a claim in there. Sushi, you think so? It's something like America is releasing degeneracy
Yes,
to
imperialism.
imperialism.
Imperialism. Interesting. Yeah, we,
Yeah.
we could definitely explore that if that's something you're interested in.
You want to
Would that
explore imperialism?
explore
Yeah.
the claim that America is releasing imperialism on? Are you saying specifically Egypt or I'm sorry,
The
you're
Middle
talking
East.
about Egypt, right? You're
The
not
Middle
talking
East.
about, okay, the Middle East.
Middle
You're not
East.
talking about England, right?
Oh, I mean, England. It's already too late for England, bro. But I think there's hope for England.
Yeah, it's kind of a
What is England? They've lost everything, and the best things they have now are like the Americanized version of themselves. They look up to America now. I feel like
yeah.
I lived there for quite a while, and I feel like it didn't live up to what I thought it would be because it's become very Americanized. Nothing wrong with that, but it's lost its what it is.
Yeah. Would you stick to the claim that America is releasing degeneracy on the Middle East? Because I'm more interested in that claim, though ultimately it's up to you.
Sure, okay. I think America unleashes degeneracy upon the Middle East. I have to make some kind of claim here. I understand. There,
Okay.
that's my claim.
I don't want to force you to make a claim. If you want to go
It's
with the
made. I'm making it.
okay, all right, sounds good to me.
Brilliant.
Okay,
So,
so
do you want to start
America.
off by telling us a little bit more about what you mean?
Telling you a little bit more about what I mean.
Yeah.
I
So, like,
think
how are you using like degeneracy? Like, what do you mean by that?
I think a lot of it comes through media, and through the tourism industry in Egypt. I think people look up to American ideals more and more but they're not very compatible with Egypt, and they lead people to be more degenerate. Particularly the access to internet, um, the way the cities became more and more Americanized, and I feel like it led to a great separation from what the traditional Egyptian life is. And the effect of that was that people became much more greedy, viewed women in a much worse way, and things like this. I mean, it's things that maybe aren't such a problem in America, but when they're applied to the Middle East and they're applied to Muslim countries, they have a very bad effect, I think, on the people there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm wondering about the how women are viewed. Could you elaborate on that? How are women viewed in a way that is
Okay. I think Western women are viewed as being very accessible in Egypt
okay?
and as being very sexually loose, as a kind of contrast to how they cannot access Muslim women because you have to marry them. You have to talk to their father and then you have to marry them. That's how you access them in Egypt a lot of the time. And I think this sexualization of women has entered the mind there and changed their perception towards women over time.
Got you.
And maybe I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but I feel like a lot of this weird female shit comes out of America. Whether it's feminism or whether it's objectification and sexualization of women, it seems to me to come from America.
Why is that particularly important to you?
I guess because I think it affects society a lot and it affects relationships a lot in a negative way.
Okay. So like the sexualization of women or over sexualization of women negatively impacts like the society. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think so.
Okay. And when you're saying it negatively impacts society, what do you mean by like negatively impacted? Like how does it negatively impact society?
I think it leads men to view women in a more objectifying way and to view them more as sexual objects rather than partners. Um, I think porn, especially, is really, really bad. I used to watch porn and I used to be okay with it. But um, for a few years now, I've come to realize, come to reject it, come to realize that it has a very, very bad effect on yourself and also on how you view women. And I think this is a very important thing because I think the dynamic between men and women is a very important, cohesive, um, or a very important point of cohesion for society. And I think if this comes apart, it leads to a lot of problems. It leads to the sexes starting to oppose each other, which I feel I saw symptoms of in the UK.
Okay. Um, to go back to the claim just a minute, so that the claim is America is releasing degeneracy on the Middle East. Is that still an accurate description of what you
Sure,
would say your claim
I
is?
think it is the source, yeah, absolutely, through media
Okay. How
of a lot.
confident from a scale of, let's say, like 0 to 100 are you that that claim is true?
On a scale of 0 to 100, I think it's true. I don't know. I don't have a scale.
Okay.
That's just
Okay.
my impression. That's my impression.
Got you. Can we do maybe, are you somewhat confident, or highly confident? Would you be able to do it
I'm
on that?
somewhat confident. I'm somewhat confident.
Somewhat confident. Okay.
Yes. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely some common ground to be had here. Usually we don't do this in SE, but as a point of maintaining and building rapport, I will say that there's definitely some common ground here. I think.
Oh, we lost him. Oh
Oh
no.
no.
Hmm.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, we're
Maybe
back.
they'll come back.
Let me
Oh,
add him back to the
okay.
Sorry
stage.
about that.
There you
You're
go.
all
Got a
right.
Back
call.
with
I
us
got a
again.
call. All right, continue.
Yeah, I don't want to get into specifics on my part, but I will say that there's probably some common ground. between us, though I'm sure that there's areas we would still disagree. But to me, that's not the important bit for this conversation. And I don't even know if Sushi wants to share it all, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that's very interesting, but I don't know a lot about it, so I don't have enough information to really form any opinion yet.
That's
But
actually
I
a good
mean,
position
you're
too.
from there, so I wonder what you think about your own country in this regard.
Oh, well, maybe we can explore that a little bit later. But if we could stick to your particular claim at the moment, and then like maybe at the end you could ask me more about it.
Sushi, I messed up. I forgot. Where did you say you were from? I missed it. Sorry.
I'm originally
Oh,
from Egypt.
oh no, I thought he was talking to you. Okay, never mind. Um, okay. So then, somewhat confident. What are some things that you would specifically like evidence that you're seeing either in your personal life or data that you know of that gives you that confidence level?
Um, Pretty anecdotal, just my own personal experience in Egypt.
Okay.
That from my friends, from what I experienced, from the ways that also Egyptians treated women, these guys they have a proclivity to treat women this way. By the way, I feel like they're restricted by. I feel like Islam and society kind of restricts them from it. But given a
Mm,
chance, these guys are animals, so it's a good thing that they're restricted. Seeing how they treat Western women is not good. So I feel like this influence kind of brings out something really bad over there. You know?
yeah. So you see it again, like you were saying earlier, particularly the the way that women are viewed in America. Some of those issues are exacerbated in Egypt because of the proclivities of people in Egypt. Is that correct? Or I don't want
Absolutely, absolutely. They're
to. Okay.
susceptible.
Okay. Got you. I don't want to keep going if Sushi has something else to say. I do have other questions, but
No, no, go for it. I think you're on a good thread there.
okay.
I don't want to
Um,
disrupt your thought process too much.
thank you. What are some things that you're seeing from your friends specifically, if you don't mind sharing that, that are indicating to you that this is how they think or that this is a problem?
When I was in Egypt, it was mostly the internet, dude. The internet had like this was the introduction of degenerate shit in my childhood. It was all the internet, and it's all like I guess originally pretty American. I see American influence on Egypt in my understanding.
Okay.
Can
So are
be
you seeing,
expanded. You know. Sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, you're all right. Go, yeah, you can
Go
speak.
ahead. I interrupted.
Um, so are you seeing like your friends on the internet a lot? Is that
Yes, like in
something?
internet cafes, this was the source of degeneracy in Egypt, from what I experienced.
Okay.
Um, and I guess the way they viewed Western women as well was very negative. But you know, I don't know, man. This is just I'm trying to bounce it off you. I'm trying to understand also what you think of,
Yeah, yeah.
this phenomenon.
Well, the part of the problem is that like I've never been to the Middle East, so I don't really, I couldn't tell you whether or not that I think America is causing degeneracy in the Middle East. I can tell you that I think that there is a problem in America with the way that women are viewed and the sexualization of women, but that's me sharing my personal opinion there. I guess that's also where I think there's probably some common ground between us.
Okay,
But
so you kind of share my opinion a little bit.
at least within the confines of America, I can't really speak
Yeah.
to, and we probably don't have the same views on sexualization either. But I do agree that there are some issues for sure.
Hmm.
But again, I can't speak to the Middle East. I have friends that are from there, but they're from Palestine, and I don't think they have quite the same. It's not the same as Egypt, I don't think.
They have more pressing issues. I'm not worried about that, bro. They don't need
Yeah,
to worry about
yeah.
that.
Um, so you said that you see people in internet cafes. What are they doing in internet cafes?
The
Like,
kid, you're delving into it to the point that I'm uncomfortable. But let me humor it. Let me humor it. Wallahi, I should humor it. Okay. Um, I guess the only sources that I had in my childhood of that kind of weird shit was from internet cafes, and it was from guys referencing um, American women and how women were in America. And this was before I sort of understood the world. This was before I had experience of the world. So this was the impression that was imprinted upon me. It seemed to be the source of it in Egypt. You know.
Okay. So conversations you're having in the internet cafes
Yeah,
is
and what these
meant.
degenerates are doing in there. Yeah, absolutely,
Oh, okay. All right. So things that
100%.
are okay.
So what I heard there, just make sure I'm understanding too. So, you've had this experience with talking with people from America about women, and they tend to sexualize the women. Is that what you're saying, or am I not hearing correctly?
I think that's definitely something that American media does. I think it's
Okay.
definitely something that American media um, proliferates. English is not my first language. Give me a second.
Yeah, I think you're doing
Proliferates.
really well.
Thank you. I think American media definitely proliferates it um, and adds to it. I don't know what the American culture even is. It seems to be kind of just the media. American media seems to be American culture, you know. And that media certainly has a very bad effect on gender relationships, which I feel is a really important thing. The way men view women, the way men view, the way women view men. I feel it's a very, very important social cohesive point that if it starts to break down, you get a lot of bad effects, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the definitely the media is the easiest thing to see from America. So that's what the exposure is to a lot of uh, Americanization is going to be through the media. Um, but to go back to are there any other instances, by the way? So we talked about internet cafes. Are there other things that you're seeing or hearing in Egypt that are causing you to reach this conclusion?
I haven't been there in 12 years. I don't see
Oh,
it
okay.
anymore. But when I was a kid, that's my experience when I was a kid. So that's the reason I have that opinion. And also from the people I've spoken to, I guess, and the type of opinions I seem to come across. But the more, um, let me think about what I'm going to say so I don't say stupid things.
Oh, no, take your time.
Um, hmm. I guess the more Western experience I had, the more I felt like there was a problem and the more it kind of impacted me before I resolved it. I did resolve this problem for myself, but before I resolved it, it created a big problem for me how Western women were and how Western men were and how the relationship between them was once I entered that dynamic. Coming from his perspective of being from Egypt, it felt like there's no uh, mutual care. It almost has an oppositional quality. And it reflected very much the worst part of Egypt. The worst part of Egypt is the fundamentalist Islamism, which views women as being unable to do anything. They shouldn't be able to like sing, dance, do activities with other people, etc., etc. Extremely restrictive. And then in the West, it was the exact opposite problem, where their sexuality becomes way too um, flaunting. They become way too advertised. It's like two entirely opposite problems on opposite ends of the spectrum, and going from one end to the other felt very jarring, you know. So I guess that's why I felt that I disliked the American influence because I hit that other end of the spectrum, the other negative end of the spectrum. Does this make sense?
So if I could ask a question, so it seems as though when you're evaluating this, you're coming, you've had this kind of experience, right, where you've seen like a change in culture in the Middle East as far as it pertains to, um, the way women are sexualized. How do you determine, um, like how big of a problem that is? Like, how would we go about determining whether or not it was or wasn't a problem in the Middle East?
Whether it's a problem that women are the relationship is
Sexualized.
changing?
Yeah, because like you would
Oh,
kind of use the example there of like the Muslims, how they kind of keep women repressed. And then there's the other side, which is that the Americans are bringing the degeneracy in. If we had a third party that had this information, how would they go about figuring out whether or not it was more women being repressed or more women being sexualized?
oh, that's interesting. So you're saying that potentially it's just something that's already there being released.
So like I've never been there, right? This is the first time I've been presented this belief, right? So I can't live your lived experiences, right? And I could speak to somebody else that has a lived experience, and they can form a different opinion. So my question is like, how can I, as a third party, how could I evaluate to determine whether or not degeneracy is a problem or isn't a problem in the Middle East?
I guess you have to go there and live there. I imagine. I don't know how else you could know. I think you'd have to experience it, I guess.
So if two people had, if I went over there, or let's use a different person. So let's say someone from Germany went over there. So even countries are removed here, and they came and they had an experience that said, you know what, there is no degeneracy here, right? And then you're saying that there is. How would we go about figuring out whether there was or wasn't degeneracy? Like, how would we be able to measure that?
How are we able to measure that? I don't know. It seems so hard. You have to have some kind of godlike perspective from above, which I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, man. I really don't know what answer to that
That's a good
question.
answer. I love the I don't know answer. Do you know how many things I say I don't know on? Too many.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a very hard question. But
Yeah.
I still hold the point that I think there needs to be more bringing together. Like this gender problem, I feel is something that's a big problem in the West in the opposite way. It's a problem to Egypt, if that makes sense. Um, but I feel
Yeah,
it's worse in the West. It's my
yeah, and
experience.
like I understand how like you we're seeming to see it as a problem, but I'm not sure how we can measure to determine whether it is or isn't a problem. And like that's kind of why I asked that question, because like if we have those two people which could have two different opinions based on their lived experiences, what would be the best method to determine whether it was or wasn't a problem?
I guess I don't know. So let me ask the other guy who we're speaking to
Sure.
as to you agreed that this was a problem in America. So how would you
Mhm.
measure that being a problem in America?
I would probably want like surveys. Like I would want to survey women and gauge how maybe safe they feel or objectified they feel. I would want to, you could probably do some like analysis on like actual like media. Like you could probably do some sociological analysis on movies or things that are on the internet and get some estimate. Those aren't the best ways, but I do agree that I don't think that that gets us to like any absolutes. It might not even make us very confident, but I think that that's how we could begin to gauge or answer that question. Is how are the people generally in that area viewing the issue?
Hmm.
Does that make sense, or is
It,
that?
it, it makes sense. I think it's actually more relevant in America I think the question isn't really about its sort of leak into other places, but
Mm,
rather the Western places themselves. Like, how are they doing? How is the family unit, and how are the genders interacting, and what's going on with all that in the West? Because that's the source. I feel like that's a better place to ask that question as to
got you.
how we can analyze it and how it's working out in those places. Because that's where it's the biggest problem, I feel, in my experience. And even in the place I work now in Japan, um, I feel like it's a huge problem here. I don't know if it's always been that way, but the sexualization here of girls is like extreme problem. I don't know
Yeah,
why that is. Don't know why.
I, I just watched an interesting video on the views of prostitution in Japan, and that was really interesting to see the sentiments towards it. But I'm sorry, I don't want to get us too off track. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
It is brutal, brother. The place I have to, the road I have to walk down between where I go after work to drink with my colleagues and then go back home, there's this like alley where there's always like 20 to 30 prostitutes just lined up, just sitting on their phones, chilling. And that shit is like everywhere in Osaka and in Tokyo as well. It's a huge
Hmm.
problem.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking a couple other questions, and maybe
Go
this will uh, answer some of these other things we haven't been able to answer. But can you think of anything that would increase your confidence that the claim is true? The claim America is releasing degeneracy on the Middle East. Is there any like facts you could find or things that you could see or witness that would increase your confidence in that claim?
um, I don't know. I guess if they stopped it, that would be the best way. If it stopped for a bit, then we could see the effect of it. Um,
If they say
I,
that one more time, I'm sorry.
I think okay. In comparison to give you my personal experience, the comparison of the areas of Egypt that I've been to, um, and that I've visited, and that I've known the people of, which were not modernized, versus the ones which were modernized, were very, very, very different. And I feel
Got
this
you.
is a Western influence, and it's inevitable. It is inevitable because in order to survive in the modern world as a country, you need to understand that you have to enter the modern global system, and that means allowing Western influence in. But I feel that this brings with it certain negative things. And I think it's even the same in the West, where you can see the difference between cities and more rural areas, more traditional areas, which have not had this modern Western influence placed upon them, which I feel is a negative influence.
Got you. So if you, let's say there's an area that you know that is not modernized, and we go and we modernize it, and let's say 6 months later to a year later, you're seeing the same issues that you're talking about now in that now modernized area. Would that increase your confidence that the claim is true?
Sure, it makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Um, Same thing. So you talked about, I think you talked about how surveys aren't really effective here. So if we did survey, let's say, all the people in Egypt, or a lot of them, and women were saying that they felt sexualized and objectified, and they feel like Western culture or American culture is influencing this. If you had like that, say a survey or a poll, would that increase your confidence that it was true?
No, because I don't trust the opinions of Egyptians. Theoretically, yes, though.
Okay.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay. Theoretically, but not exactly.
But
Okay.
realistically, no.
Okay. All right. And then so I'm wondering if there's a way to figure out the reverse now. So we've talked about some of the things that it could increase your confidence. Could we think of things that would decrease your confidence that the claim was true?
Um, Absolutely, yeah. I think maybe if I visited America and I saw that things were different to how I understand them to be or how I perceive them to be, then that would change my opinion.
Hmm, that's interesting. What would you want to see here specifically that would change your? Could you imagine? Maybe this is not the best question to ask, but is there anything that you could imagine seeing here that you'd be like, "Oh, this isn't what I thought it was"?
I guess if they still have like functional family units and
Mm,
they don't have this weird gender divide that I witnessed in the UK, and they don't have this overt sexualization that I witnessed in Japan. If they didn't have these things to the degree that I think they do, then I guess I would have to reconsider that.
got you. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. I have one other question I think brewing somewhere, but I want to check in with Sushi and see if he's got any that have come up.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a different path to go down, so I didn't want to throw you off your questioning too much. So if you want to continue down that chain, otherwise I can ask some questions.
I have to think about the question anyway, so you
Okay.
might as well.
Yeah, so I guess my question really comes down to, why, what makes it good or bad, or I think you're saying it is bad that women are more sexualized than the current culture allows. Um, why do you believe that that is bad?
That is a very good question. Um, I think it's bad because it makes them more of an object and less um, a partner for your life. I think they should be. I mean, I have to go like all the way back down to basics in my brain for this. Okay, I guess it's a human being. It's a human being, a male and a female human being. And they're growing up as human beings, and I feel that it's much more respectful and um, much more functional for you to promote developing serious relationships with each other and staying with each other than having temporary relations with each other and seeing each other as being a kind of opposition rather than a partnership. I think that the strengths of men and women are greater when they come together in a partnership and they're like seriously binded together. Because if they're not, then there's no family unit. And if there's no family unit, I think it leads to children having a rough time of it and developing problems because there's no stability and there's no structure. I think the structure allows the insemination of ideas, of good ideas, and teaching to go down fluidly. But once it's fragmented, then it prevents the whole system from working.
Okay, so I kind of heard two separate ideas in there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is like the idea of the objectification of women, and then there is um, the lack of family unit, right? When dealing with a Western culture, is that correct? Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Okay. Like of those two, which one is more important to like the degeneracy, like being a bad thing?
Do you not think it's a bad thing?
I'm asking you. I mean, you can ask me later. Then I mean, I don't
Okay.
know honestly. But,
I mean, it's just a belief I hold that it leads to bad things for you and for your life and for the people around you. If you care about your own pleasure more than you care about your responsibility.
I'm not quite sure I understood that. Could you restate that?
Well, I think degeneracy is equivalent to your own pleasure. I mean, if you don't want to commit to somebody and you just want to play around and you want to accidentally create a family like a lot of people do, thus creating a fragmented family, or have a woman that's raising her children on her own without a father figure, I think this is a very irresponsible thing to do, and it's for your own pleasure. It's your own pleasure. You make a mistake, and then you don't step up to the responsibility that you have. I think this creates a bad effect on the family unit, if this makes sense. I think it's
Yeah.
prioritizing your own pleasure over your
Right.
responsibility.
I understand. Or if I believe I understand what you're saying is that not having a an emotional relationship or some sort of bonding between the two partners, it can lead to a dysfunctional family unit, and that is what is leading to the degeneracy. Is
Sure,
people that are having children out of wedlock or outside of relationships. Is
sure.
it okay? All right. Um, so in well, because this is applying to the Middle East, I think it kind of goes back to that question of how do we measure, like how many people in the the Middle East are marrying out of wedlock compared to say like 10 or 20 years ago. Like how big of a problem is this?
That's a good question. I'm sure you could find those figures, but I don't know them. I don't have them for you. I don't have them
Hmm.
for you. You've chosen a person who does not have all the facts and figures.
No, that's totally okay. I mean, I definitely don't have all the answers either. Um, I'm just curious. Well, I think you had originally said that you were somewhat confident on it. Um,
Yes.
would you still say you're still somewhat confident, or is your
Yes.
um,
Still somewhat confident.
okay? If you were to find out, or what would change that confidence? Like if you were to find out that, no, that's I'm sorry. um, I lost track. Quaid, can you bail me out here?
Yeah,
Sorry
yeah,
for
I do. I do. I thought of how to put it. Okay. Um, so so what if there was something else that happened in Egypt or in the other Middle Eastern countries that was better correlated than American or Western influence? Would that change your confidence that it is America causing the degeneracy?
Better correlated, 100%. I mean,
Okay.
I guess
Okay.
it's media and modernization in general, but I just sort of associate that with Americanization or globalization.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of specific examples because that's pretty broad, right? But I was thinking like
It's
let's
very
say like we did a study of uh, the male view of females in the Middle East, and we find out that there's a direct correlation with the amount of money that that person has in their views. That is that it maybe even goes earlier than Western than American media has influenced those areas. Uh,
100%. Yeah, I think money's always been a factor. Yeah. You cannot
oh,
deny that.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So but you just see that as another factor on top of the
Yeah,
influence of, right, right. Okay.
for sure, for sure.
So same thing with like I don't know if you could think of anything. I was trying to think of other things. I can't I political reasons. I'm not sure what I really even meant by that, but um and then you
Absolutely.
spoke on sorry, go
The
ahead.
repression, I guess repression is a big factor. Muslim fundamentalism is a big factor because that will, of course, create a counter movement. I think places where it becomes much, much more strict can cause a counter reaction in the long
Mm,
term. Where things are suppressed, then there's always a natural repression. The same way, like if you're trying to quit alcohol or something and you don't let yourself drink at all, even on weekends, your brain just can backfire and force you to drink right there and you snap. So I think some allowance is very important in that context. But of course, I
wow.
accept in the grander context, I accept that of course it's not the only, it's not the cause of all problems, but I just think it's a negative influence.
Got you. That was a very sophisticated explanation to me. The idea that uh, the repression of certain desires, along with the just utter abundance of availability to meet those desires, interacting with each other, can heighten that problem. Is that am I right in
Absolutely.
saying that? Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think
Hmm.
that's very reasonable. Absolutely. Repression is something that is not very effective when you're dealing with human desires, I think, because human desires are like an animal, and an animal um, has to be slowly broken and not just held back, you know, otherwise it can break free. It has to be a gradual process, in my opinion. If you try to repress or suppress, something beneath will always build up and burst out.
That's interesting. Okay. Sushi, have you thought anything else since then?
Um, no, I think we've dug down in there pretty good, and I don't know if if Mojo, if you're interested in continuing or not. Um, but that
Yes,
was.
because you told me you'd answer my question at the end.
Oh,
That's what you
sure,
told me.
sure.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Go for it. Go
Now
for
you
it.
have to.
My question was, which is what I was really curious about, which is what you think of this problem in your country, because you're supposedly the source of what I'm talking about.
Well, so first of all, I guess me personally, as far as like me being a part of it, I am somebody that's asexual, so I don't engage with people sexually, or even view them sexually. Um, so I don't have much in this game. But from my lived experience, it seems as though people in general are objectified sexually. It seems as though marketing plays a big role in that. Whether or not it is a problem, I'm not entirely sure, or how big of a problem it is. And whether or not it is good or bad, again, I don't know. I have no way of measuring how much like impact it has on society one way or another, as far as what somebody even means by good and bad.
You're asexual. Does this mean you've transcended sexual desire?
Yeah, yeah, I don't have sexual interests. Yeah,
I don't
You've
think it was
transcended it.
deliberate.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he went. I don't know because I've never talked about this with Sushi before,
No.
but I don't think he like went into some deep meditative state and.
Oh yeah,
uh
no.
Okay.
This is a very interesting topic to me. Maybe I shouldn't get into it. Should I not get into it?
Well, if you want to join the SE Discord server, maybe we could talk more about it. Yeah, if you'd like.
Sure. I use Discord very occasionally, but if it had to be coincidence, I would absolutely come. But
Okay,
yes,
cool.
that's
Yeah.
something I'm very curious about. This alternate sexuality stuff, which I never grew up with, and then it appears to me. I kind of understand, like, um, I guess bisexual or gay people are attracted to their own guys, but like asexual, I feel like that desire has to go somewhere. It's either conquered or repressed. That's how I always thought of it, right? But I never really discussed it with an asexual person.
So there's this frog, right? And I find this frog on the side of the road, and the frog says to me, "If you kiss me, I will turn into a beautiful princess, and you can have your way with me." It's interesting. So I pick up the frog and I put it in my pocket, and then the frog says to me, "Didn't you hear me? If you kiss me, I can turn into a beautiful princess, and you can have your way with me." It's like, just keep it in my pocket and keep walking. Again, the frog says again, like, you kiss me, and you can have your way with me. Like, why aren't you doing this? I said, well, there's lots of people in this world that I could have relationships, but you're a talking frog, and that's way more interesting to me, right? So that's kind of like my position is like, yeah, there's lots of people out there, but I'm more interested in ideas than like sex or social relationships.
Well, okay, you channel your sexual energy into cerebral energy. This is like conquering sexuality to me. That's what it sounds like. This is some chakra type stuff. This is some old school. This is some uh, golden snakehead. This is some Jungian shit, right?
Well, yeah,
um,
yeah.
oh,
Is it deliberate though, Sushi? I mean, I don't mean to pry here. You don't have to
what's
answer.
that?
Like
Um,
that story right there made it sound like that it is actually deliberate.
oh no, that's actually a story that my dad wrote for himself some years ago about me to help me understand. It was like how to understand sushi, and I do IT, and I was on his computer the one day, and I found it, and I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
What if you found a girl that was like a very chill, not sexualized, very chill, pleasant girl that you felt you connected with on a cerebral level? Would you feel attracted to her?
yeah, it's not that I don't have like attraction to people, right? Like, Quaid is an interesting person that I like to like socially engage with.
Thank you.
Um, so like I enjoy. I'm still a social creature, right? And still like interaction. It's just that like you were saying about like the objectification. Like I don't see people or entities as like sexual things or objects. It's just like they're merely other humans that I want to socialize with or spread ideas or communicate with.
Then do you feel towards girls like the emotional level of it? Emotional
I mean,
attraction.
yeah, to some extent, not really. Like there's almost no desire there. It's yeah, I'm different.
Clearly, I can't understand it all, bro. I had to wrestle with
Yeah.
demons in order to quit porn and to not be degenerate and not to like see girls or bars or
Uh,
stuff. I had to wrestle with demons, bro. So to me, it's very foreign, a very
uh,
foreign concept. Very interesting as to how that works.
yeah, yeah, just who I am,
You're just
I
born that
guess.
way. You're just born
I
that way.
guess
Yeah.
I always imagine it as just like, okay, so I know that I have sexual desires towards women, right? And it's
Mhm.
just like, what if I didn't have those? Like, what if just those urges that are there weren't there? And then it's like, okay, yeah, that's I can imagine that to some degree.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's not that I've never have them or don't. It's more of a social obligation. Like it took me years to realize that I don't need to be in relationships because I've been in relationships. Um, but it's like, wait, this isn't for me. This like I don't want this. I just want to talk about ideas. So also, this show turned a big left turn talking
yeah, I
about
know, yeah, I
sexuality,
was thinking about that,
Very,
thinking
very
about that.
European.
which
Sorry,
is fine. I'm open, but yeah.
I always
yeah,
felt
that's
like
right.
blonde, blue-eyed people were aliens. That's confirmed. Yeah, I've never felt connected to you people. You're very different to me. Don't
Hmm.
understand it. You
Yeah,
have
we don't
much
need
more.
relationships.
Yeah, I guess maybe think of it like I'm a
Don't have
monk.
primal
I'm a
I'm
monk
on,
in the
yeah.
mountains,
desires.
just meditating.
But you went down the easy route because you didn't have to fight it. That's the thing. You didn't have the dragon. The dragon wasn't there. You rolled up to the fight and the dragon didn't turn up.
Yeah.
It seems very idyllic. It seems very peaceful. I feel like a lot of problems come out of that sexual urge, that sexual desire, that emotional urge, and that emotional desire. I feel like a lot of guys, like that's a big thing inside of them. That's, creating a lot of the things in their life, a lot of the problems,
Hmm.
or a lot of the desires that they need to fulfill. A lot of the drive is what I should say on a lot of the problems.
Yeah, a lot of
See,
people's brains seem to shut off, right? In regards to attraction, for sure.
Absolutely, man. People do insane things for love, insane things, and
Sorry,
for
I didn't mean to cut you off.
sexuality. So it's fascinating, fascinating to meet someone who genuinely has no feelings naturally. Very interesting.
Well, it's like some people love pecan pie. I have no desire to eat pecan pie. And so it's like to people who love pecan pie, that probably is really weird. But it's just like I have no desire to eat it. I don't know what to say. I just don't
But we're
like it.
talking about a food preference compared to a primal impulse of all living creatures. Have you? There's a
Well,
slight
eating
difference.
eating is a primal, and
It is
especially
a primal
sugar,
impulse. So
especially
it would
sugar.
be weird if somebody didn't like food. That would be weird.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see what you're
Didn't
saying.
like eating.
I see
Pecan
what you're
pie
saying.
is more like blonde girls. We're specifying now.
Oh,
Some
okay.
people don't like blonde girls. I feel that's a valid point. I feel it's a valid point.
I get what you're saying, but yeah,
Okay. Well, we've come to the conclusion of the topic. It's
I think
interesting.
so. Yeah.
It's
yes.
interesting. I'd
But
Is
love
there
to talk.
anything else you'd want to explore?
I only want to explore your sexuality, but I'm not going to do that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay.
Uh,
I'm not going to explore your
well,
sexuality.
unfortunately, I'm not interested in exploring sexuality with people. But
Okay, no problem. That sounded almost homoerotic. That's not how I meant it to come out.
uh,
Um, but I
We
mean,
don't judge here, so this is a judgment-free zone.
yeah.
yeah, but that's it. I just noticed you guys have a chat on the side.
Are you talking about on the YouTube channel?
Yeah,
Oh, you're still in StreamYard. Yeah, that's the people on YouTube talking to each other.
Muhammad had the sexual strength of 30 men. That's very true. No, I'm not a Muslim, bro. I'm not a Muslim. Interesting topic. I grew up in a family that was my father came from a fundamentalist Muslim family, and he was Egyptian, and my mother came from an English Catholic family, like a Puritan old school, and they both rejected their extreme religions and came together. I guess that's why I'm kind of neutral. Whoever wrote
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any claim to explore that. Is it okay, Mojo? Thank you for talking to us about this, by the way. We appreciate it. Is it okay if either you step down on the Discord server, just so if somebody else can come in, because I've only left space. You can stay
No problem,
here,
Habibi. No
but just
problem. I
on the
have to get
Discord.
ready for work anyway. It's very early. It's like 7 a.m. here. I have
Okay.
work in 2 hours. It's no problem. It was nice to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I mean you are welcome to stay and talk if you want. I just meant on the Discord, but you can also if you gotta go, we understand that too. We want
No,
to
it's
respect
okay.
your time.
I gotta go, and I hope
Okay.
you get an interesting person to come up here to talk to. I hope
I
they
thought
don't
that was a
harass
great
you about your
conversation.
sexuality like I did. If they're
No,
not Arab, I'm sure they
hit me
will.
up on Discord. You can I think it's sushi or Quaid can share me with you.
I
Yeah.
did enough to you already, bro. I did enough to you already.
I
Okay.
think
Oh no.
I think Mojo wants to know your ways, Sushi. That's really what
Oh.
he's getting at. He wants to know your ways.
Yes, brother, the path. I'm interested in pets. All right, well, it was nice to talk to you guys. I hope you have a
Yeah, it was a
good,
pleasure talking to
what?
you too.
Is it evening for you guys?
Yes,
It's
it's
yeah, after.
2100 here.
Okay.
So
I hope you have a good
o'clock.
evening. 2100? Is this guy a Navy SEAL? Okay. You guys have a good time.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.
All right.
Yeah.
Ciao,
See you,
ciao.
Mojo.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao, ciao.
Sorry, Sushi. I just got your message in
Oh
Discord,
no,
so
no problem. It's cool. So, well, if
hopefully
anybody else has a belief that they would like to explore, or if you just want to come up and chat with us for a little bit, feel free to click the StreamYard link. Yeah.
it's pinned at the top, right?
Yes, it is pinned at the top. And you know what? I think I have it. I'll paste it again. If anyone wants to join us, yeah, blessed be he. It seems as though you had a whole lot to say. If you'd like to come up here and join us, that would be delightful. If not, that's fine too.
Anybody else as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, how'd that conversation go for you?
Which part?
The first part. I guess you can tell me how the second part went too, because I don't want to feed into that conversation if that was not apropos. Probably not.
Yeah, I thought the first part of the conversation went good. I think you had better rapport with him than I did. I think I got down to business a little bit more. You really wanted to know our side, right?
Yeah, I'm always afraid to I don't want to give my full perspective because I'm trying to remain neutral, but I'll give just a little bit just to say that I've answered the question to not aggravate them.
Mhm.
But I was wondering while we were doing it if your way was better, and I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's the tough part. What I think what I really wanted to do is I wanted to dig deeper, right? It sounded like there was um, deeper, more fundamental beliefs that brought this claim about, and I think I would have liked to have tried to find or explore that. I don't know if you got the same sense.
There was some initial conversations when he was talking about like the anecdotal evidence that I wanted to get to, but I wasn't
Mhm.
thinking deeper claims. Where were you seeing that, just so I can kind of be on my toes when it?
Well, I guess it tied to like the culture, and I don't know unless I asked him, but it seemed like it was important. Like, what is influencing why you believe this is a problem, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
like
agree with you on that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like let's say for instance, like he did answer our question, or no, he did answer our question. Excuse me. He said I don't know, which again, brilliant answer. I love that answer. Um, but let's say he had a really great answer, which was, yeah, I've surveyed every single person, and women are being sexualized, right? Um, what makes, or men are being sexualized, like why is that a bad thing? And again, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing. It seems like it is a bad thing to sexualize people in general.
Yeah.
But like, why do you believe it to be that way?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, we should have. I should have picked up on. I could see you talking about that, and I think also people in our comment section were talking about that, and I did not go down that. I wanted to go down that line of thinking, but I wanted to cover other things first, and it just slipped my mind at some point.
Yeah, that's the nature of it. Is figuring out where to take, or where to go with the claim. Every SE practitioner is a little bit different. We all have our own style. Yeah.
Yeah, now that you mention it too, what I wanted to do was when we first talked about the claim, I he started to talk about it enough, so I kind of let it go. But just the word degeneracy,
Hmm.
like if he could have
Yeah.
really, like, how do you know when you see degeneracy versus something that's not degenerate? Like, what are the defining features of degenerate versus non-degenerate? Do you think that would have been a good question, or still not to the point?
Yeah. I had asked a little bit early on to for him to define it, and I don't remember his exact definition, but he did give some idea of it. Um, and I think that's actually what it got us to the sexualization part, because I think that's what he meant by the degeneracy. I just didn't feel like getting stuck or hung up on the definition.
Yeah, I do want to highlight this really quick because I think that's
Oh,
a potential
interesting.
conversation starter.
How do you know philosophy is true? I don't know what that means, to be honest, because what does it mean for philosophy to be true? What does it mean for something to be true, even if it's not philosophy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure either.
Like,
Like
how would we figure out what is true? What does it mean for something to be true?
well, corresponds with reality is I think the most given answer that I would agree with.
Yeah, that seems to be what like we all kind of use, right? It seems to be the most accurate thing I heard of, right? Like, if you and me agree that something has occurred in outside of ourselves, then we might mark it as true. But I guess we could be mistaken about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of the issue.
Hmm.
Did you relink did you resend the invite in the
Yes, I did. I don't know if
oh,
it's a clickable link. No, it's not a clickable link. I think, I don't know if YouTube allows you clickable links in the chat.
oh, that's why. Yeah, because I didn't pull that up.
I have another question. How do humans start to philosophy? Um, Not sure I understand that question. How did humans start philosophy? Is that the question?
Yeah. That's probably closest to it. And we probably don't actually know the answer to that question. Like the historical answer, I think, is Thales was like one of the first philosophers. one of the earliest known, but he probably didn't start it. We've probably been doing it for as long as we've had like a language, I would imagine.
Yeah, as soon as we had the concept of think or question, maybe like what is, then we have philosophy.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to the issue that I'm having with the other question, which is that I see philosophy as more of a process than something objective about reality, or processes, not even a process, but processes, discussions of processes. Like, I think it's more in that ballpark.
Yeah, I think it's philosophy is a discussion to help form new ideas. Um, Maybe it's one way of putting it. It's like an art project of concepts, right? And then you could,
Yeah.
you paint a picture of a science fiction thing, and then someone's like, "Oh, that's a neat concept," and then somebody attempts to make it real, and then a transponder on your wrist, right? And it's like, oh, that's an interesting art concept, and then somebody's like, yeah, I can make that, and now all of a sudden it's not philosophy anymore, it's a science, right? We have a
Yeah.
telecommunicator. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more, yeah. And I think the utility of philosophy is in its questions and not its necessarily its answers to some
Yeah,
degree.
right. It's like the it's free thought, right? Whatever that means, but just a way to explore ideas and concepts. Yeah. There you go, Chase, our resident vegan. What's up, Chase?
Hey,
Um,
Jace.
Philosophy is the study of wisdom. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure what you mean by wisdom. I know a lot of people use that differently. It's one of those words that I'm not really not sure about. Um, yeah, I
I
like
could
your
use an
answers.
analogy, but
For what? For wisdom?
yeah, it's always my brain always goes to analogies, but I agree with you. I'm not actually sure what wisdom is. Like, what's the difference between wisdom and knowledge?
Mm,
And the traditional, like, well, knowledge is that a tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is that you don't put it in a fruit salad or something. It's something like that. So wisdom seems to be more about like cultural knowledge, maybe.
mm. Yeah, I kind of put it on the same plate as common sense, right? Like common sense are things that we agree with, or that we think other people should know, that like based on I knowing it. So, my idea of common sense is very different from your idea of common sense because we have two different lives of understanding different things. So in the same way, like that's sort of wisdom, like when you know a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something that's wise to one person is foolish to the other person type deal.
Yeah. Um, but I don't know that it actually means anything. What Jake, philosophy encompasses many beliefs and systems, methodologies, and areas of inquiry to tell if a philosophical view is true or valuable. We must reflect upon it, one particular philosophy. So I guess it's like how do we think about it, right? That's kind of what I got out of that.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with that statement.
Yeah.
I think a while back, let's see. I liked your answers, but where does it come from? Again, my just the straightforward answer is I don't know. I don't know where philosophy exactly comes from. I can guess. I mean, it obviously comes from brains, or it comes from the interaction of thoughts.
Hmm.
But I couldn't tell you like when it first started or um, where is that like from brains, right? Like,
Yeah, I guess if the question, if it is referring to philosophy, like where does philosophy come from? It seems to be a human concept to me. As far as I'm aware, that's the only organism that I've experienced to have the idea of philosophy. So I would say it is emergent from humans. Um, yeah, or maybe there is other species that could have a similar concept but utilize different, verbal behaviors to communicate it. I don't know.
what could I name this channel to maybe get somebody else over here?
I don't know. You
I'm
could
just gonna I'm just gonna put flat Earth in.
definitions are boring. Yeah, definitions could be boring. I apologize. Thoughts upon a time. But what a guru or something? uh, Quaid or sushi?
What?
Oh, he's blessed be he said, "Are you like a guru or something?"
I
Um,
would guess you based off of the conversation we were having earlier.
uh, definitely no guru, just some person that likes to read and absorb information and not have sexual encounters, because we touched on that.
Yeah, I do some meditation, but I have not yet transcended to the level of sushi's of where sushi is at yet.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've meditated sometimes, but the concept of meditation has really been influenced by particular cultures, or I think, in my opinion, a lot by media, and it's this like whole like transcendent, like being at peace with oneself, and like it's almost got like a higher order connection, whatever that means.
Mm.
Um, and it really is as simple as being aware of your surroundings, right? We're getting sensory input all over our bodies, right? Our bodies are doing, things that we're not currently aware of. And the concept is to become aware of that. How does, the your bum feel on the seat? How does your feet feel on the floor? What is the temperature in the room right now? What are you seeing? What are you hearing, right? That's meditation. Being aware of everything, or as much as you can, and recognizing thoughts for what they are, that they're thoughts and not necessarily reality. Yeah.
Yeah, it does pretty good. Sorry about my
No,
dog.
if you want to call in, you do not need to be on camera. Just need to be on microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that was a pretty accurate description. There's a saying, I guess, that I really like, which is before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. And I'm like,
Chop.
yeah. So the saying is before enlightenment. So before you reach enlightenment, you chop wood and you carry water. After
Okay.
you reach enlightenment, you chop wood and you carry water. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
people expect some like higher, ascension or which some people do claim to experience, different visual effects or auditory effects. But I think one of the stumbling blocks for me in meditation was when I kept expecting these great things out of meditation,
Hmm.
as opposed to just the edge that it took off of things, as opposed to just the momentary peace that I could get with anything. And once I accepted that, things changed.
Yeah, it's really with anything. There is no magical cure for things, right? We have to put work into it, and it's the same way with meditation. You don't meditate and then magically become at peace, right? You're at peace because you're being aware of the world. You're slowing down. You're recognizing your thoughts and understanding it as it is, and not overthinking things or panicking, right? Like, um, yeah, and it's like the what's the monk that set themselves on fire?
Oh, Tick Quan Duck.
Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, what did he do? It's like, yeah, my thoughts are I'm on fire, and it is just that, a thought, and I can just pause, right, and not have a reaction. I mean, that's like some extreme meditation to get to that point. It's not that he didn't feel it burning, right?
Yeah.
you know, it's just that they just didn't have their reaction. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, the same response. That is crazy though. That is crazy that you could do something like that. Not that I would never recommend,
Oh yeah, please don't do that.
self-immolation, but
No. Yeah.
uh, it is still interesting that so many people say that, like, the 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 reports are that he pretty much just sat there. And it's just like, that ain't me. I definitely could not do anything like that.
No. Is it Indio 007? I think they're interested. Are you still interested in coming? You want to post the link again, so if they want to join us?
Yeah. I'll post it. Yeah, I need more provocative titles for the Discord. I just put Flat Earther, but usually somebody comes in, but it's also better on here than in Discord anyway. So we got lucky with that last.
Oh, there we go.
Caller.
Indio 007 is there.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
Welcome.
Good. How y'all doing?
Oh,
Well. How about yourself?
It's my mic. My mic is kind of messed up. I don't know if it's low. Does it sound good?
Sounds great to me.
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So where should I start? Well, I'll just introduce myself. I've been a flat earther since probably like 2017, 2018, maybe. I run something called the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord, which is a Discord got about 30,000 roughly members. It's our actually second iteration because the first one got called a hostile takeover because of a Discord glitch in their in their server administration. So that one had 37,000, and yeah, I've talked to thousands of people. That's not an exaggeration. From PhDs in astrophysics, cosmology, physics, you name it. So yeah, cool. I mean, I'm very familiar with the topic. So
welcome. Well, I'm glad you came up and were willing to speak with us. Is there?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he froze.
Oh, hopefully we'll get him back. But yeah, then thanks for actually giving us the topic to talk about too, because we chose it and we haven't talked about it yet. So I'm excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about the topic. So people think flat earthers think Earth is a disk in space, like the third disk from the sun or something like that. And no flat earther actually believes that. We often get conflated with Flat Earth Society, which unironically is there's no flat earthers in the Flat Earth Society. It's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek joke. It's not really a Flat Earth Society at all. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. It was started by some guy, and this guy basically used it to make money. So he would go around and give talks. And one thing he did was he brought a rock with him and said, "This rock stopped me from falling off the edge of the earth. It saved my life." And yeah, it's just like a big troll.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about, but I haven't looked into it that much.
Yeah, I could give you his name.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not important. They're not important. Like, I've met, like, I've talked to thousands of flat earthers. I've never met a single one in the Flat Earth Society, to be honest.
Got you.
So,
So, is the sushi? Did you want to ask this or?
I would just wanted to say that you were saying about how people have these ideas of flat Earth. So something we like to do in street epistemology is we try not to make assumptions on people's positions, beliefs, and let like you speak to what you believe and how you're using words. And if we don't understand, we like to ask questions to understand what you're saying, to not make those assumptions. Because yeah, you're right. A lot of times when people are having conversations or debates, we make these assumptions and we create these headbutting because we're using words differently, and we're not understanding each other. So we want to try to eliminate that by asking you what you mean when you use words. So
okay. Yeah, no problem.
Cool.
I mean, I've talked a lot. I'm used to talking about this topic. I pretty much talk about it every single day in voice. So this is old for me. It's not nothing new. So, I mean, if you have any, if you have any questions, a lot of people, well, I guess I already said that they have misconceptions just about. I mean, the purpose of our Discord is basically why go to a third party to figure out what a flat earther thinks when you can actually just ask somebody what they think, right? So,
Yeah.
so we're on the same page there.
Okay, cool. So would you want to explore that particular belief? You believe the Earth is flat?
I mean, that's one of the problems, right? A lot of people characterize flat Earth as a belief
Okay.
because fundamentally the globe is a belief, and because if you look at it like this, right, experientially, right, we observe the Earth as flat and motionless. That's how we perceive it with our senses, and calling something you perceive with your senses a belief is a stretch, right? No one says, "Oh, I believe that street light is red. I believe that thing is green." Right? We don't call our experiences perceived through the senses beliefs. Now, of course, our senses can be tricked, but obviously, so can our mind. But our senses keep us alive, right? They are highly accurate compared to like mental errors, mental mistakes. We make them all the time. So you have this dichotomy of should I trust my senses or should I trust my concepts? Because the globe for the average person, of course, there's people that claim they went to space and they saw the Earth as a globe, blah, blah, blah. But for everybody else, other than that small subset of people, it's never experienced as a globe. It's just a concept that they see on a screen or in TV or a picture in a book. It's not something they actually experience for themselves. So that's why typically say flat Earth is a belief. I go, well, I go by the ocean. The ocean looks flat. I don't have to believe that. I can just see it, right? I don't. It's experientially based.
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked to quite a few flat earthers, so I thought that asking that might get that response from you. So I am wondering if you would be comfortable making any claim as it pertains to the shape of the Earth.
I mean, that's where we get in. Well, that's another thing. I mean, like if I ask you what's the shape of a rock, what are you going to tell me?
Well, it's different. There's different shapes.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's not, and we don't. At least I'm going to speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for all flat earthers. Not everything is an idealized shape like a platonic solid or a non-platonic solid.
Yeah.
We don't think that the Earth, at least I don't think that the Earth is embedded in a greater space, right? So the modern cosmology is the Earth's embedded in a giant near infinite vacuum. It's inside this volume of nothingness. I don't think that. So in math, they would call it the embedding space. So Earth is the embedding space to which everything is within, as opposed to being embedded in a larger space. A lot of people don't understand that when I tell it to them. right? So this is like a conceptual thing of math. If you like, okay, where are the bounds of reality? Like, where's the edge? I go, where's the edge of the universe? Like, where's that? And then what's outside of that? It's like this infinite regression that like nobody can ever answer.
Okay. Just to go back and make sure I understand, is the statement
So
Earth?
when you ask me, but hold on, I just want to make sure I'm
You're
not
right.
obscuring the point. Is that you asked me what shape? To be a shape, it has to be within something else, right? If I go, okay, it's a globe, right? So how do you know it's a globe? Because it's inside some space, right? But or a circle, right? I draw a circle on a piece of paper. It's inside the paper. So saying what's the shape of the Earth means it would have some boundary around it, right? And that boundary would have a particular idealized form, so I could tell you a shape. And I don't think it
Yeah,
has an idealized form.
got you. And this isn't in the. You're not saying that the Earth is like amorphous. It's really just
No,
the
no,
Earth
no.
is. Okay, so the Earth
Yeah,
is not embedded in a particular space. Is
yeah, it's the whole universe. It's all reality. That's it.
the Earth is all of the universe and all of reality? Is that
Yes.
okay? Is
Obviously, other people think there's a dome and all that stuff. I'm not one of those people. I don't think there's any evidence for a dome. That like the firmament the actual translation of that from the Hebrew is the expanse, right? The
yeah.
expanse of the sky, right? So people like take it to mean a more the European definition of the word firmament is that which is fixed, right? So something like so it's meant to mean like the fixed stars that don't move, as opposed to the planets, which are stars, appearance stars, right? So they appear as stars, but they appear to move around. So when someone says the firmament, they mean the dome of the sky, not a physical dome that like is made of glass or plastic or whatever people think. I mean, some people do think that. I'm not one of those people.
Okay, got you. Well, it does sound like there are a few things that we could explore here, and we could go by whichever you want or whichever sushi maybe you have some preference too. But so it's like the Earth is not embedded in a particular space. Earth is the embedding space that everything is embedded. That's probably not said the best way? Is it something like that?
I mean, yeah, it's close enough.
Okay. And then the Earth is all of the universe and all of reality. Is that accurate? Based.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Do you have a particular one of those three that you would want to explore or explain?
I mean, I thought I did explain it.
Oh, I mean, more. You're right. You have explained some things, but I would still have questions on any one of those three.
But I
So
mean, like, it's like one of these things. Like, how do I go out? I mean, to me, it's like an infinite regression. No matter what answer you get, because fundamentally, this question is where's the edge? Where's the edge of the Earth? Right? What's the Earth inside? The boundary, right? Is the Earth bounded, unbounded? Right? Is it finite or infinite? Right? But that's the
mhm. Oh,
foundation of
sorry.
asking what its shape is. There's when you say shape, it means something. It means like something inside of something. It's an object, a discrete object, independent of everything else, right? Independent of the universe. It's a discrete object within the universe. The Earth is the universe. It's not discrete from the universe. It's a unique thing from which everything is within. Okay, just so you
Okay.
understand where I'm coming from. And I don't know how to explain that in any greater detail.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. We were having a volume issue, so I have been listening to some of what you've been saying, but we were trying to deal with the volume issue as well.
Okay.
I caught the last bit there, which kind of makes sense to me, which is the idea that the Earth is in the universe, so it isn't really distinct from the universe. Was that the idea there?
Yes, I mean you could just swap out the term Earth universe, right?
Okay.
So so if you even think of mainstream physics, right? If you I actually have a collection of this. A physicist asking, "Where's the edge of the universe? Where's the end of the universe? What's outside the universe?" And they say basically the same thing I'm saying, right? That it's like a meaningless question. There is no outside. The universe is not within something. Like space, the concept of space outside of reality is like, it just doesn't mean anything. Because we're setting a bound, right? Like the bound is like physical reality. And what's outside the bounds of physical reality? Nobody knows the answer to that question. If that question even makes sense.
Yes, I have heard physicists say that before, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, does the question even make sense? Like asking, what time was it before time began? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Right. I guess another thing in terms of the what's at the edge of the universe, and again, I'm not like I've listened to some physicists here and there, but I'm not, I'm not a physicist myself. We can start there. But I got the impression that it was a little bit like what they were saying the globe Earth is, and that if you, or maybe this is just a potential that if you go to the edge of it, you're going to basically go around it. But I don't, maybe that's off topic.
That's actually, there's 3 different theories of that. So right now, the current theory is that the universe is flat. So because of the long distance, the distribution of matter is so sparse that it's actually flat.
Yeah, yeah.
You can look it up. It's called asymptotically flat space-time.
I've heard that too, yeah.
But it also depends on their presuppositions of when they measure. So one is like the universe is spherical and you'll end up back at the same place, and another one is it's hyperboloid, which you also end up back at the same place, but it's kind of like a Mobius strip in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's all speculative at that level. There's no way to gather the evidence to demonstrate it one way or the other, because we can't measure to the precision necessary to reach conclusions. That's what they would say in modern astronomy.
Got you.
Because they actually changed it. They changed, like they were saying it was flat, and then like a study came out like a year ago that said maybe it's spheroid, but then the caveat was it depends on what their starting assumptions were, so it could even be hyperboloid. So whatever. That's why like a lot of that stuff, like I said, all that stuff is conceptual beliefs, and we can pile them up to like kingdom come, and we have a problem. Like, it's not a problem, you know what I mean? Your existential reality is founded on belief,
If I could,
Yeah.
just some clarification.
Yeah.
When you say flat, what do you mean by flat?
Topographical plane, not like smooth or like absolutely flat, even though the vertical compared to the horizontal is pretty flat. They'll even say it's, in mainstream science that it's smoother than a billiard ball. So if you zoomed in on a billiard ball and measured the height to the compared to the length, the roughness would be rougher than the surface of the Earth.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So when we say flat, we mean a flat topographical plane. There's bumps, there's hills, there's valleys, there's waves. I mean, most of the Earth is supposed to be ocean, so that's pretty flat. Even if you consider like crazy wave heights, that's pretty smooth and flat. But we don't mean like flat in the sense of a 2-dimensional line.
Right.
Okay.
Or a 1-dimensional line, sorry.
Okay. So, did you have questions, Quaid?
Well, I want to make sure because
Sure.
Right, Indio, you're not gonna make the claim that the Earth is flat, though, right? Like you wouldn't want to make that.
I mean, perfectly flat, like in the idealized sense. No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay, I see. Okay, so maybe that's so how would we, like, you think it's flat but not perfectly flat? Is that fair to say that you'd be okay with exploring that? Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. Okay.
Basically, the surface of the Earth is not curving at a rate of roughly 8 inches per mile squared, which I know is an approximation. People bring it up, but they're all approximations.
Gotcha.
There's no exact solution to what the curvature of the Earth is mathematically. If you want to be super technical, so you have to use an approximation no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that was it for me then, Sushi. So did you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so what was it? Could you restate the what the claim is that we're exploring? That the Earth is
It's flat,
um
but not perfectly flat.
yeah, okay. So the Earth is flat but not perfectly flat. All right. So how confident are you that the Earth is flat?
I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yeah,
nine
whatever
point
scale you.
9.7.
Oh, okay, awesome. I like the honesty there. I like the leeway. Um, cool. Um, I don't know things with certainty either, so.
I mean,
Yeah,
I do believe you can know things with certainty. I'm
yeah.
not like one of the people that thinks, oh, you can't know anything 100%.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think I'm a brain in a jar, bro. I'm a human being
I got
walking
you.
around. I ate food last week. I know for a fact that I ate food. So,
Cool.
I believe you
Uh,
ate food too.
yeah, yeah, me too.
yeah.
So what is the biggest reason you have to that came led you to this belief, or led you to the conclusion that this is true? And if you were to find out like this wasn't true, this reason wasn't actually a good reason, that it would lead you to change your position.
Well, I mean, it's not like I was born a flat earther. I grew
Mhm.
up like everybody else, right? I was taught the Earth's a globe, it's spinning, it's orbiting the sun, all that stuff. And I like the first two movies I ever saw when I was a child were Star Wars and Superman, which are both about aliens, right? So I've been exposed to this my whole life. I was into science fiction, science, all the stuff that like I guess I was a super nerd. But in 2017, there was a news program, a news channel that showed the Chicago skyline from across Lake Michigan, which is 52 miles. And that, to me, it didn't surprise me because I was like everybody else. Well, the Earth is just really big. That's not surprising. But the problem was the news anchor, the weatherman's like, this is a mirage. I'm like, no, that's not a mirage. So there's a couple types of mirages. There's inferior and superior mirages. And I should probably give you a little background. Before I saw this, I was doing research into something is called metamaterials. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're man-made materials that will exhibit what's called a negative index of refraction. So I knew a lot about optics, refraction, how light travels, all that stuff. So when they said it's a mirage, I was like, why would he say that? Like, he's a weatherman, he should know better. So I actually went and did like the calculation of like, should this be visible? And it came out like, no, that shouldn't be visible. And the standard answer from the globe side is that's refraction, bending light up around the curve of the Earth, right? So it's lifting it up. But there's problems with that, but I'm not going to get into the gory details of that. So I went and like I started looking into it, and then I was like, no, it can't be. And then I stopped for about 6 months. But it was like something like eating in my head. Like I don't know, like they said in the Matrix, like a splinter in your mind. It kept bothering me. So one day I decided I'm going to go on Google Images and just look for long distance photography, right? Not flat Earth, not globe Earth, not anybody, just like people that took pictures, they uploaded them on the internet and Google indexed them. And I found lots of images that should not work on the globe model. One particular was taken in Seattle. It was a so out in there, there's like a wildlife preserve for like birds, a nature preserve, and they have like a weather station that's out like 11 miles. In the tower, you can look it up how tall it is, and it's only like a 24-foot tower. Well, at 11 miles, it should be something like 20 feet under the curvature of the Earth, and you can see the waves smashing off the rocks. So it's like, oh, there's a problem here, and you know, so I just dug deeper. I looked at one of the first things I looked at was like geodetic surveying and see what they do. Like, so I just like started looking deeper and deeper and deeper into it and came more to the conclusion that basically I believe the space pictures in the words of the people claiming to have been from space, or I believe my lying eyes, and I chose to believe my lying eyes, I guess.
Okay, so I think I heard two main reasons there, and correct me if I misheard you. Is you saw a news report and it claimed to explain something about the lake and like a mirage, and you went and did the math yourself, and you formed the conclusion that they're incorrect, that your math is correct, and
Well,
then
I mean, they didn't show any math; they just said it. It like
okay,
this topic is one of those things like, oh, this isn't possible on the globe, but it's a
mhm,
globe. So here's my ad hoc hypothesis on why this is happening. It's like one of those type of deals. It's like an ex post facto excuse for like why it must still be a globe even though it don't match the globe.
okay. So you somebody said it, and then you did the math, and you're like, no,
Yeah.
that doesn't comport with what they said. Okay, and then the other reason is I lost it.
Yeah. So I looked for it because that particular news article was making it around like the
Mhm,
topic, right? Flat
mhm,
Earth versus globe Earth debate. People arguing about whether this is possible.
mhm,
So I went and looked for images that weren't associated with the topic, basically independent of interpretation or anything like that, right? Just looking on Google Images, probably combing through like half a thousand, maybe 500 images before I found anything that was kind of like had enough information in it where it was usable, right, to evaluate. Because a lot of people just take pictures and they don't say where they were or like what direction they're facing or anything like that. So you have to try and figure out like where was this taken, who took it, what was the height of the camera, like all these factors,
mhm.
which to make a prediction of what you should see, like you have to know all these variables.
Okay.
So it's hard to find an image that you can figure it out from just on the raw image.
Okay. So the second reason being you've done a Google search and found images that show the Earth is flat. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and
Okay.
that was in the beginning. I mean, I've
Okay.
progressed way past that from now. I've done
Okay.
all my own stuff now. Like I mean, I don't if you want to hear about that. I mean, that's
Well, I mean, I think we have two reasons here. I think we could start off exploring one of those if you'd like. Of these two reasons, which one is the strongest reason or gives you the most evidence to or to lead you to the Earth being flat?
I would say the Chicago skyline.
The Chicago skyline. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
Um,
52 miles. The picture's 52 miles across Lake Michigan, and it's been replicated, and people report seeing it all the time. So it's like you shouldn't see any of Chicago. That's the thing.
okay. So, um, help me understand that a little bit more. So um, this particular thing is you going across the lake. It's 52 miles, and you can see Chicago,
Yes.
and people are explaining it as it's because of the refractive index of the air or water moisture that causes the light to bend, and thus you can see it.
Yes.
Um, okay,
Yes. That is
and
a
then
mirage. That is actually not there. That you're seeing a mirage of Chicago.
okay, and then you were saying that you've done the math, and that disproves that explanation.
Yes, it's not a
Okay,
viable explanation
okay. Um,
for
all
for
right.
lots
So
of reasons that I could
yeah.
go. I could go into technical details of why it. It doesn't look like a mirage because
Mhm,
mirages are actually double images. Okay, so if you ever seen a mirage, right, you'll have an inferior mirage is when the bottoms, say you have a city, right, and you see one city up on top and the city on the bottom, and their bottoms are touching. That's an inferior mirage. A superior mirage would be you see say the skyline of a city, and you see the tops are touching, that's a superior mirage. And then there's a Fata Morgana where something appears to float in the sky, which is a third type of mirage. But that's not what's shown in the image. There's nothing like that.
Okay, so the math that you utilized to determine that their explanation was incorrect, where did you learn or figure out that math?
It's just standard trig or algebra. At that distance, you can just use like the Pythagorean theorem to figure it out. It's not. There's a bunch of ways to calculate this,
Mhm.
but in particular, there's a few websites made by globe earthers that, because in the beginning of this topic, they're like, flat earthers can't do math. They don't know what the correct math is. So I typically just will use their website and use their math so that there's no complaint about what the math is.
Okay. If you were to find out that this reason wasn't a good reason to form this, or to come to the conclusion that the Earth was flat, would you still believe that the Earth is flat?
Well, I mean, that's not the only reason. It's just one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Is there a reason that would like be more impactful or be a stronger evidence for the Earth being flat?
And we're just wondering, by the way. We just want to know.
yeah. Well, there is
We're
no
not saying
one piece of data should ever make up someone's mind, right?
Yeah.
It should
Yeah.
be, and I'm not saying that the sum of data is what it controls, right? Because you don't just like,
Mhm.
oh, I have like 50,000 things that confirm it. Well, it only takes one thing to falsify everything. So just from that point of view, it's no one thing. So there's different types of testing that have been done in all sorts of frequencies, electromagnetic radiation, from radio to mirrors to light, infrared to microwave. There's this new thing called LoRa, which is like chirped radio transmissions. So there's a lot of different pieces of evidence with using different sources, which all kind of indicate the same thing.
Okay.
And it's not one thing. So I didn't draw my complete conclusion until I did an observation myself, which is, I live in Boston, so I went to Boston Harbor, and so ships leave Boston Harbor and you can watch them. So I took the time to watch this boat sail out into the ocean, and you could use a website called marinetraffic.com and track the ships, right? So I know how far away the ship is, right? These ships are tracked by radar in Gloucester, which is a little bit north. So I just watched this boat 3.5 hours, and at 30 miles, it was still visible. And if you punch this into the globe map, it should be something like 420 feet under the horizon. Because that's what people say, right? Ships sail away, they go over the curvature of the Earth. The horizon is the edge of the ball, and the ship sails over it, right? This is what they've been saying for 2,000 years. So you can go back to like Pliny the Elder, like in Roman times, said this. So this is my point. Is this is what they say should happen, right? And I go out to do an observation, and I don't observe this happen. I've never observed it happening in my life. So, and I live by the ocean.
Okay, so if I understand you, the Chicago skyline thing is something that led you to start questioning,
Yes.
and it's the observation that really secured the belief?
Yes. My personal observations what secured the belief.
Okay.
I guess, I wouldn't call it a belief, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My bad. I understand you were saying. I do apologize. I am trying to use your terminology. It was my mistake.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I was at the ocean. I was definitely there.
Yeah.
I had a roast beef sandwich.
You had a roast beef. I had.
Yeah.
I believe it's true that you had a roast beef sandwich. There we go.
Yeah, there's a place called Kelly's Roast Beef. If you ever come to Boston, it's like the best roast beef.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait, hold on. I'm
They
gonna have to.
they cut it. They cut it off the slab fresh, man. It's still like warm and stuff, so it's awesome.
Okay.
But
Just
only the
kidding.
one that's on the beach because they got like chain restaurants. They're gross. Don't go there.
Okay, what's the name of it?
Kelly's roast beef.
Kelly's roast beef.
Yeah, it's open 363 days a year. So that
Oh
should
my,
tell you
there's a
something.
bunch of them.
This is making me hungry now. We gotta
Yeah.
we gotta get away from this topic quick.
Yeah, sorry.
Like, all right. I'm just joking.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, there we go. Oh, yeah, the one Kelly's roast beef. There it is. All right. Just don't tell Chase.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
Chase.
Don't tell Chase. We just told him collectively.
Yeah. So back to it there. Yeah. You had these observations, and then you're like, yeah, this is definitely true. What about these particular observations like were so compelling for you?
The mismatch, right? The order of magnitude of the mismatch from the globe prediction versus what I observed. It's not really close. That's the thing. A lot of these flat Earth observations, they're not really even close to what the globe predicts. It's not like, oh, this isn't within the margin of error, or maybe I measured wrong a little bit. Some observations are off by like 2 orders of magnitude. They're not even close. I mean, if you've done any science, you know, like if your prediction is 2 orders of magnitude off from the experimental result, your prediction's wrong.
Okay. So you took into the account the prediction, right? The math that a globe earther utilizes, and then you took the math that you utilized and it better matched the observation.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's easy to actually explain what the so-called globe math is. There's something called, they call it standard refraction, which is based upon the 1976 U.S. Standard atmospheric model, right? And that makes, so what they do to just make it simpler is that they increase the radius of the Earth just by 7/6, right? So you multiply 3959 times 7/6, which is something like 0.166 or something, and it gives you a new radius, right? You use that new radius in just straight line geometry to figure out how much light should be deflected or how much something should be lifted up in the distance. So if you were 10 feet off the water and you looked out 25 miles, that object should be picked up like something like 5 meters, right? Sorry to just like swap units. I'm just going off the top of my head from what I remember. I don't want to do the conversion.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 meters is something like 30 feet, right? But something that far away should be hidden by something like 90 feet, right? So yeah, you can like wiggle room, but you shouldn't like still, if you're seeing something that shouldn't be seen, and even taking in refraction into account, it still should not be seen. What's the circumstances where you still see it?
Okay. So I know you said your confidence is very high. I think you said 9.7. Is there anything that would take that up to like a full 10, that you'd be 100% confident that it is true?
I mean, that's a good question. Yeah, I gotta think about that for a second. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, take a
I
second.
don't think
That's fine.
I don't think anything's beyond, especially with the natural world, is beyond falsification. I don't think there's any natural phenomenon or anything about the physical world that like our ideas about it that can't be falsified. So I don't think that's possible to take it up to 100%. I mean,
Okay.
it would have to be like, I can't actually conceive of what it would be. It would have to be like some crazy experiment that no one can afford.
Okay. So there's nothing could be nothing to increase your confidence, or nothing that you could currently think of
There
that
is a way.
increases.
There is a way now to
Okay.
think about it. You'd have to do it
Okay.
mechanically, but it's really so you'd have to make a structure, a physical, mechanical structure that you know is straight because you engineered it that way, that
Hmm.
doesn't bend or sag or turn or anything. And you would measure the same distance across like the surface of water, right? So what I mean is, say you made this structure and it was 10 feet off the water, and
Hmm.
then like it's long enough so that it's a mile long. Well, the globe predicts it should be that distance between the water surface and that mechanical structure should increase because the Earth's supposed to be curving away from it. So you should be able to measure that difference in distance, right, from where it is and then the end of it. And if you mechanically engineer it to be straight, you know absolutely that that's straight. And then like the water, you're using basically that mechanical that structure as a reference to figure out what the water is.
Okay.
Understand?
Yeah. Like, put it in a few words, if I'm understanding correctly. If we were able to make a really, really long straight edge that was actually
Yes.
like perfectly straight, we would be able to use that to measure and determine that the Earth is flat, and that would take your
Yes.
confidence up. Okay.
Yes. So if you could do that and you could bring in a bunch of places, different bodies of water, and
Mhm.
demonstrate that it does it, that it's the same everywhere, then I'd be 100%.
Okay. Is there anything that would lower your confidence?
Well, yeah. I mean, so people often ask me like, okay, what evidence do you need to show the Earth is flat? And I always say, show me a body of water that's curving at the surface, right?
Hmm.
And like we know how we could measure this, and like all the tests that have been done
Hmm.
show that it's not. And typically, so I mean that if the results showed that the surface of the Earth is curving by like whatever their predicted rate is, um, then yeah, I would lower my confidence. But
Okay.
no one's actually ever shown that.
Okay, I'm just a little bit confused there, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding. I do apologize in advance, but it seemed as though your criteria for increasing your confidence was measuring to see if it was flat with the straight edge thing, and there's something that would lower your confidence is if we were to measure that it and it was round. Um, it is. Uh, How have we? Oh, I lost my question.
Well, I mean, let me clarify.
Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
flat earthers have done tests in like
Hmm.
like all the spectrums of electromagnetic radiation. So, to increase my confidence, it would have to be something different than that. It would have to. The only other option is mechanical. Okay.
Okay.
So, as far as the Goldberg side, if you wanted to lower my confidence in flat Earth,
Hmm.
they would need to do these same tests that we've already done in the mechanical one if they want to, um, and show a different result, but no one does. That's the thing. There's no like globe Earth laser tests out there measuring
Hmm.
like measuring a curved or surface of the Earth. There's no like uh, microwave or radio wave or any of that, right?
Okay.
So obviously those frequencies don't travel forever, but
Hmm.
it's not because of the curvature of the Earth. It's different things like aperture size. There's something. The air actually is not transparent. It actually
Hmm.
absorbs light, and it's easy to figure this out because you can go on your local weather and like look at your visibility, and it'll say something like 10 miles. That 10 miles isn't because of the curvature of the Earth. It's because
Okay.
air has particles and aerosols, and the air itself absorbs light. So um, there's other reasons other than there's a big ball blocking the radio waves, or the microwave or whatever, that account for why I can't send people. Why can't I see China from why can't I see Europe from New York?
Okay.
So
Uh,
you understand what I'm saying? It's like that's not really even if the Earth was flat, I mean, even if you believed that, you still wouldn't be able to see it. New York would be so small because it's 3,000 miles, and like, no, dude, it's not possible. You can't see the end of your street sometimes because of the clarity of the air. Like, how are you going to see? How you can see Europe from New York? Like, it's not. That's to me, that's like almost childish thinking.
Okay. So if I were or if I had this person Betty that was trying to determine whether or not the Earth was flat or round, because they were just born or yesterday or something, but they're magically like 25 years old and they understood everything. Um, and
Awesome.
they saw your math and they saw a round earther's math. How would they make the determination, or how would they confirm or test whether or not which math method was correct?
It would be the same because I'm going to use their math. I'm not going to use my math.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to tell you. I use what they've come up with, right? So there's a bunch of
Okay.
what I call anti-flat earther websites. Just like I
Mhm.
was telling you, to say flat earthers can't do math. This is the right math. That's the math I use, so that there's no dispute about whether the mathematics is the correct mathematics.
Okay.
So it doesn't become a matter of opinion, right? Oh,
Mhm.
arbitrary choice of I'm going to use these formulas versus those. No, I'll just use your formulas, and call it a day.
Can I modify this just a little bit?
Yeah, go for
Yeah.
it.
So we're using the same math, but how would we tell whose calculations are correct?
Well, I mean, you could just do the calculation. I mean,
Okay.
the thing is, it's not the math that's the problem. The entire globe model is based upon observations of the sky. They're not based upon measuring the ground. That's what kind of what maybe I shouldn't generalize it, but the entire globe model is built upon celestial observations, right? Observing the sky. How does the sky appear? What is its geometry in relation to how I move around the Earth? The entire globe model is constructed from celestial observations. So, latitude and longitude, right? Those are actually not points on the ground. They're actually points in the sky. So there's a celestial longitude and there's a celestial latitude. And we, by convention, have decided, hey, when Polaris is 45 degrees above the horizon, we're going to call this 45 latitude, where I'm standing. And how do I know I'm at 45 latitude? I looked, I saw Polaris, it's 45 degrees above the horizon, right? So the entire globe is not measured on the Earth. It is a correlation between the sky and our conventions of where we are on the Earth. And like I said, I could go into crazy technical details about how this is done, like in geodetic surveying and astrogeodetic surveying and all the problems with it. And there's huge problems. But it's good enough for a lot of these things are good enough for practical purposes. So no one ever notices. It's not like I would say this: that if you looked at the globe model, so if I want the distance between New York and LA, you would do the calculation. What's the arc length of this on a sphere? And it would calculate you could calculate the distance on the globe of the radius they say, the distance of New York to LA. Now, if you drive in a car and it's off by, you make your prediction, I should be there in 48 hours, and you get there in 43 or 52, you're not going to be like, oh my God, call the geodetic survey, man, the globe's wrong, right? It's good enough for practical purposes. You're going to go about your day. You're not going to ask any questions. And most of the things are like this, right? Flights, sailing, driving, all the things, the modes of travel, which people think are based on a globe, they approximate the celestial sphere, right? Through basically convention, and they're good enough for practical purposes. They don't need to be exact because we're not using them in ordinary life to that level of precision.
Okay. Um, Yeah, I'm understanding a lot of what you're saying. Is it okay if I just go back to a few things that you were saying earlier that I had questions about that I didn't get to cover? Would that be all right? Indio, can you hear me? Am I audible right now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay.
Indio 007, do you hear Quaid on a state? Did we lose him?
We might have. Well, that sucks.
Okay. Let's give him another few seconds here and to come back, and if not, we have somebody else that is waiting for us.
Yeah, we can always pull. Oh,
there they
okay.
go. They
Well,
left.
there we go. All right.
All right. You want to bring Brenda Debates up?
Yeah.
Brenda, welcome.
Hey, Brenda.
Good evening. How are you guys?
I'm well.
Delightful.
How about yourself?
I'm getting ready to maybe make some banana bread.
Oh,
All right.
nice. You
Yeah,
know the rules of when you tell people you make food, you have to share it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you're welcome to. But those bananas aren't going to be any good in the morning, so it's going to have to happen tonight.
You have a
That's
willpower that is stronger than mine because I never do it.
It's not hard.
I bet it's not, but I'm lazy.
It's
You
not.
know, there's just no avoiding it.
A couple cups of flour, couple eggs, cinnamon, baking soda, and maybe salt, some other stuff. Throw in some chocolate chips in there.
Yeah, gotta have the
Yeah.
chocolate chips in there. Yeah, now
Or
you're making me hungry.
walnuts. Walnuts are often.
That's even better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's an excuse because then it's healthy. It's got bananas and nuts in it, right? So.
Yeah. So I debate flat earthers quite a lot, and I am curious how you approach it because it can be really difficult. Because I don't do. I'm familiar somewhat with street epistemology, and it's very different than typical online debating methods, right? And it's really hard sometimes. I don't actually do street epistemology. I do what I try to correct mistakes. So when they say such and such, I say no, that's wrong. You know, you're either your reasoning or the source that you cited are not what you say they are. And then so I'm curious about how you guys approach that, because it's really tempting. And because I'm not trying to do street epistemology, I guess I'm not really tempted. But if that's your preference to take that approach, it must be very tempting to go into, no, that's not right.
Yeah. You know? It is very hard, and that is what separates street epistemology out. And first, I'd like to promote the course on street epistemology. If you'd like to learn more, it's totally free. Just go to navigatingbeliefs.com. I just posted it in the comments both on YouTube and Facebook. So if you'd like to learn more about it, please check that out. It's totally changed my life and helped preventing the yelly arguing debates where nobody is listening to each other.
I think that's a fair assessment, yeah. And Anthony Magabasco is somebody that everybody should follow, even if you choose not to do street epistemology. Street epistemology, it would be a good way to get through holidays with family members who don't see eye to eye. That's it was really good for that. But yeah, Anthony Magabasco. And there is a Discord on street epistemology too, where you can go and practice.
That's right.
And people in that Discord, I've been in there. In that Discord, people will simply take a position and then practice debating each other on it.
I hosted the practice sessions for about a year in the server. Pretty active in there, so we may have talked. I don't know.
We might have,
Uh,
but it would have been over. I have spoken to them about transgender issues,
okay. Yeah.
and I've had somebody that was one of the few respectful conversations I've had with people on the internet about my identity. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh,
it
yeah.
is.
It was impressive. It's just I don't always feel motivated to try to practice street epistemology when I'm debating flat earthers. Basically, I want to drop a nuke from orbit.
So like I think because we just did have a flat earther SE, I think there's a good point to be had here. And what separates SE apart from a debate is it's about the epistemology, how we know what we know, right? And like this person that was just on, his epistemology was empirical, right? He had information and he's done research, and because of that information and research, he formed a conclusion. Now, like I believe that information is incorrect, and I think it informed a false belief. Now, because it's SE, we don't do that, right? We don't debate, we don't question it. So his epistemology, it seems to be okay for him to believe what he believes. End of the conversation, right? Part of SE is not about making the judgment for them. It's just about helping them reflect on their own reasons and whether or not they think their reasons are good.
Yeah, I think the strategy of trying to get somebody to move them to the place. One of the questions I hear a lot, and I would actually use this in some cases, like what would move you? Where is your confidence level right now? Like between 100% and 0%. And if they say something like 80, 85, 90%, so what would what would move your confidence level that you are right down, say 5%, or even just a little bit? Often, a lot of people will say, "I'm 100% sure. I'm 100% sure that God exists. I'm 100% sure that the Earth is flat." And but then the goal is to get them to reduce that confidence by a small amount, so that there's room to maneuver. I think that's really key to it in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think on absolute claims, that's true. That ultimately the
Yeah.
goal is to hopefully have a conversation with them that, well, I guess either they convince you that you can be absolutely certain about the thing that you're talking about, or they become convinced that they shouldn't be absolutely sure about the thing they're talking about. One or the other has got to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's often religious issues, or I'm 100% sure that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and He saved me because I had this horrible experience, and my belief turned my life around. Right? That's a very common thing. Or I 100% believe in Bigfoot because I had what I perceived to be an encounter that just completely changed my mind. But I don't actually believe that. But that would be something somebody would say, or UFOs, or Bigfoot, or flat Earth, and all of those. And they have 100% commitment to the truth. And I believe that doubt is a virtue. It's virtuous to question your own beliefs, and a lot of people don't. They don't do that. They're very emotionally committed to something being the case. I've recently modified my beliefs, talking to a flat earther, and I brought up the case of the Falkland Islands, and I had been told many times that in the case about the Coriolis Forest, that the Falkland Islands, when the British ships initially began using their artillery from their boats to shell the Falkland Islands in that conflict, that they were wrong because they forgot to take into account they were in the southern hemisphere rather than the northern hemisphere, and Coriolis would have affected that. And I was shown by a flat earther that this was in fact a myth, a wives' tale, or I don't know what it was, just false information, and so I don't use it anymore. And I was shown it was incorrect. I was shown to be incorrect.
Yeah, it's there a lot of times there's always some truth in everything. Even how he had said about the universe being flat, it's the problem is of his understanding of flat. Because when somebody cosmologist says flat, they mean the lines remain parallel, which means that you can still have a not parabolic. There's a term for it. Crud. The particular shape, but the lines can remain parallel on a curved space-time. Yeah, and it's like still technically mathematically flat.
We can have planets in a flat universe because they mean, but by flat they mean that in three-dimensional space, going over astronomical distances, there's not going to be, the universe is going to remain in a certain way, and if it wasn't, that means that would either collapse in on itself, or as we currently believe, if I remember right, it will rip itself apart eventually. Is forced apart by dark energy, I think, dark energy pushes matter and accelerates the expansion.
That is the thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can have planets in a Euclidean flat universe on a cosmological scale. You can have planets,
right?
Which we do. Okay. Well, I'm just curious about how you guys approached it and stuff. And there's another conundrum or mystery that I've often have is in dealing with certain flat earthers is this person a Poe, or do they truly believe? And that is like that is one of the eternal mysteries of the universe, held in a locked chamber at the foot of Isis somewhere, because nobody knows. There's a number of flat earthers I'm convinced this is just they're just Poes, and they're doing this. They're selling T-shirts, or it's just because they get attention. But
Indio thinks that too. Indio was saying that. Indio was saying that he thinks that the leader of the Flat Earth Society is, in fact, just a profiteer.
Oh, that's another thing. Those are two separate communities: the Flat Earth Society and the other internet flat earthers. They're at each other's throats, but they, as far as I know, my understanding of the history is the Flat Earth Society began as a parody, but has since gathered enough people that believe in it, that it is considered by people that I know, it's considered to be a genuine position of flat earthers. And then there's the other ones who take a very different point of view, and they are adding, they each one considers them, it's like Catholics and Protestants, basically. Either one consider the other heretical.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I remember the leader of the Flat Earth Society, and he seemed to believe in Flat Earth to me, but I was going to take what he was saying for granted. I don't get that much into it, so I was just like, hey, if you don't think he's a Flat Earther, then sure, okay, I'll go with that.
Another fascinating thing is the Bible Creation Institute has a position. It is really amazing to see the biblical fundamentalists pushing against flat earth and making good arguments against it. That's really amazing to me. Yeah. And I think Danny Foster or somebody like that, he's a Bible creationist, and they have a lot to say about flat Earth, they do not agree with it.
Yeah, you're talking about the Institute Creation or
Yes,
the ICR
I
Institute
think
for
so.
Creation Research.
Yeah.
Well, and then there was a pastor who there were two pastors having a debate on the stage. I don't know if you saw that, where one of them was
Greg Locke.
That's correct. Yep.
Yes. I watched that. That Greg Locke is out of his mind, but it's so weird to me. I'm an atheist, so it's so weird to me to see this person, Greg Locke, who I consider him a hate preacher, right? He's homophobic and Islamophobic, and it says and gets on stage and struts around and screams and stuff. But when it came to this, he made good arguments against the flat Earth. It's surprising in a way, and I think it's a good way to remind yourself that people aren't fully defined by their religious or political positions, right? People can surprise you. Somebody that you think is a religious fundamentalist and off their rocker can come and make good, reasonable arguments for a position where you can agree with them. And that's a little humbling. That's humbling, and that's a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, nuance, and I will admit that based off of what you were talking about earlier, like I follow like Hanlon's razor to like an absurd, naive degree. So when it comes to like pose or trolls or anything, I will almost always assume that the person is being genuine, even when I'm sure that they're not when I'm sure, but even when there's a possibility that they're not being genuine, I'll just see where it goes anyway.
Yeah, you can't know. So just assume that they mean what they say.
Yeah, and it's worked out for me too to do it that way, I think. Because even I find it that like, so the thing is like with pose or trolls, if you do it that way, they just get frustrated and leave anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've had plenty of SE conversations with people that were just trying to stir things up, and yeah, you know what? I saw it as really good practice, and people are, why are you bothering? It's really great practice to remain composed and unbiased and try to dig in. Yeah.
Oh, it's hard, especially for me. It's hard. It can be really hard because they can find, if they are a Poe, or even if not, I suppose, they will find something that will really upset you, and they'll work on that.
Yeah.
Good luck. They could try for days with me.
Yeah. If they stir the pot and nothing comes up, then that's when they get frustrated, which is interesting. But I mean, yeah. And then like earlier today, I had someone that came into the Discord that I have up on Street Epistemology, and I did my regular routine where I listened, I wrote things down, I asked questions. But the reality was that he was berating me, and I was sort of taking it, and I didn't feel the greatest afterwards. I didn't feel horrible, and I still went to the end, but it was just like, I wonder if you have to consider the fact that you're human and abuse still happens to you too.
I would think, in my opinion, that street epistemology does not mean you have to subject yourself to verbal attack.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
You can gently assert and say, could we talk about the subject matter? Please don't continue doing that. And can we get back to the subject at hand? And if they really react to that, that kind of does say something.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed speaking to you a little bit.
Yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you, Brenda. I put the link in to the Discord. Oh, you said you were part of the Discord, but anybody else who hasn't been to the Discord, check us out.
Well, it's like all the other I've got like 24 Discord. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got folders of folders. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but the politics server kind of tracks me quite a lot.
Yeah, me too. That's where I started one there,
They've
and
got
that's how we got the first speaker
they've got
tonight.
thousands of members in that server. Thousands.
Yep.
And boy, if you want a weird political position, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hit or miss. The first person who came that we talked to today, he was from the server, and it went really well. But if we
Oh.
would have gotten the first one, the one that was in there before we started the live show, it would not have ended well.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
so
that
it's
makes
hit
it
or miss.
interesting.
Yeah, I was actually thinking like if he comes back, I'm gonna say, hey Sushi, this person is this or that way, but I don't want to tell you not to talk to this person. See how'd you handled it, but
That's
Yeah,
practice, man.
my opinion is you're permitted, even within street epistemology, to not be verbally attacked. I think that's my opinion. And maybe it's useful. Maybe it would be useful in some cases to sit there and take it. I'm not
I,
sure.
I mean, on rare occasions, I have said, I'm not interested anymore in the conversation.
Yeah.
But that was it wasn't when it was pointed at me. It was when it was pointed at others, and I was like, nope,
Yeah.
no, we're not doing this, and I'm not interested.
That's
So,
fair.
yeah.
All right. I
Alrighty.
appreciate you interacting with you. I just had those questions to.
thank you, Brenda.
Well,
Hope to
enjoy
see you
your
around.
banana bread. I'll just have
Oh,
some
yeah.
virtual banana bread.
Yeah, banana bread.
No.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Brenda.
And we got humanity here.
What's
And
up?
join us for the party. Oops.
Hey guys.
Hey, Manny, what's up?
Hey, I'm doing good. I've really enjoyed the SC so far. But how do you guys feel?
I feel good myself,
yeah.
but
Yeah, the flat Earth one, like we had
You were
talked a
cut
little
off
bit about.
midway of that too. That's what sucks.
Yeah. I mean, like I had said with Brenda, when they're using empirical reason, it is hard. I think that is a limit of SE.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about that because
Yeah.
I think that SCers are woefully unprepared. Really, like all of us are. I am too. Like we are used to most of the people we do SE with having the same types of reasons over and over again. And when we finally have an interlocutor that is kind of speaking our language, speaking the language of, hey, I want to go by observations that I can test. I want experiments that have results that can corroborate with observable evidence. I mean, it just sounds awesome, right? Like, this is exactly what we want people to do,
yeah.
And so, yeah, like we got to think about what do we want to do from there if we get the sense that this person might need a different perspective.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that to me though, I it depends on the SEer and how they handle it. This is why I don't put any hard fast rules of like you don't share any information. I don't think you should force the information, but if there's information that you know of where you're like, hey, I've heard or I understand this thing, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on it. Like to me, that's how you can start to handle that to one degree. But it is also, you could go, okay, like, yes, we want to use empiricism. What are the flaws in empiricism? How can empiricism also lead us to incorrect conclusions? And how do we know? I think, or rationality even.
Yeah, so it was a little hard to understand because he had a lot to say, but there was a lot of talk about math and calculations, and there was one point where I was wondering, like, well, could his reason for believing that the Earth is flat? I know he had many reasons, but whatever reason he was referring to in regards to the math and the calculations, could that reason lead to a false conclusion? Like, he's talking about how he did math and it had a certain outcome, but I know that definitely with me, I'm pretty bad at math. So like, if I did a calculation and I tried to put this calculation against a physicist and I came up with something different, like how much should that change my confidence?
Yeah, and I certainly was trying to get to that at the end when I had said, and I think I used bad phrasing because I said, are the round Earth math versus your math when it was like the method that I should have said, and then of course we kind of got cut off. I think Quaid had stepped in and with the. And because that's what I would have really liked to get at is like, how did you prove that your math is correct? Especially when he said like, oh, you just use the Pythagorean theorem, and I'm like, yeah, mathematics is way more complex than the Pythagorean theorem.
Oh man, and you were on it too. There was one question that I remember you said during the stream that you forgot what you were going to ask. Did you remember it since then?
No.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. What I was thinking of though was he talked about this mechanical straight edge experiment, and it was an interesting idea to me. He said that if that experiment was to be done and then it had a certain result, that would raise his confidence. But the weird thing was when you asked him what would lower his confidence,
it was the same thing. Essentially.
I thought what he said was he brought up the water levels, and it's like, hey, if you could find out that if you could find water that didn't reach its level, something like that.
Yes, exactly. It was the same thing, but two different ways of saying it. It's like, well, that was your criteria, but you said that's not possible. And yeah. And then I totally lost whatever the train of thought is I had at that time.
Okay. I guess I interpreted what his experiment was differently. I thought the straight edge thing was the idea. It wasn't about the water levels. I thought that experiment was about if it could be perfectly straight and it never bends, that would be proof that it's flat.
If it was straight and never bends and you were able to see that the water curved away from it, that would be it being round.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I thought, and again, maybe flat Earth is a tough one for me, and there's this I guess it's not really a debate, but is it good for SEers to have some base knowledge in the topics that they're discussing? And I personally think it can help. Some SEers don't think that, and I can kind of see their perspective too. But it is and again, the way that you present it, I think is important. But my question is I was under the impression that bridges do some of these things. Bridges are us trying to create a piece of metal that is at some points level and having to accommodate for curvature, just to see what he would have said to that. Well, that's not actually how bridges work, or they don't accommodate for it, but that's my thought.
So it's interesting because I think in most SEs we spend so much time just kind of getting people on the same page of, is there objective truth? Are there ways to test things? Is it good to have a test that can, depending on the outcome, increase your confidence or lower your confidence? And when you have a person that's already speaking that language, but they're just coming to different conclusions, maybe the best thing to do there is to, and I'm not saying this would be good for a live stream, but maybe the best thing is to have the patience to dive into that minutia with them. If they're bringing up something about the Chicago skyline, look up something about that, do it right along with them. If they have some sort of math that they present to you, it just depends how much time you have and how tedious you want to get with it. But if somebody's already talking empiricism, then maybe that is what you should do.
Yeah. I'm wondering. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I go ahead, man.
I'm wondering what both of you would think if most, if not all, of what he was saying was true. Do you think that the reasoning is good? So if we granted him all the facts, do you think the reasoning bears out? That
Yeah, so me, like, I honestly think, if you can imagine that this wasn't some hard to believe thing like flat Earth, and it was just some claim about nuclear physics that you just had no opinion on. You were so uninformed about it that you were indifferent. I think the guy sounds really smart. I mean, just to be honest with you, like, I think the guy sounds like, oh yeah, he looked at the observations, he did the calculations. Wow, that's pretty compelling. That sounds like if I wanted to find out the truth about something, that's what I should do. So, uh, when you have a situation like that, you may want to grant that, like, okay, uh, this guy, this guy has there's something there he's doing right. Yeah, I guess you just want to grant that first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think his reasons were good, right? If the math was correct.
Yeah.
Just based on my understanding of the math and my evidence, it it's just not true based on that. I guess part of the claim too was about the Earth being the everything, and I mean, I don't know if we got into space, but I've seen planets and nebula with my own eyes through a telescope, my own personal telescope. I've taken photos of them, so like I have evidence against the claim.
Yeah, that might have even been the better claim to explore, really, is like, do we have good reason to believe there is space, that there are planets other than Earth, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think for him, it would be just the fact that there's this conspiracy behind it. There's this idea that what you're seeing through the telescope is not the full story.
Yeah.
But what I just remembered to say that I think SE is really meant for evaluating internal consistency, evaluating whether your reasoning is valid. I don't know if SE is good at evaluating whether your reasoning is sound. When I look at that flat earther and what he had to say, I think it sounds pretty valid. That is to say, the logic, the premises follow to the conclusion. What I don't know if SE is capable of showing whether premises and the conclusion, showing that is like not just valid but sound, meaning that we've verified that the premises are correct.
No, I mean that's not what epistemology is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the method. It has
Right.
nothing to do whether or not it, like you said, is sound. Yeah.
And it's generally difficult too. Like, it is very, like, fact researching is an arduous process.
Yeah.
It is lengthy and it is difficult. And and that's one of the reasons that I got into street epistemology, was because I noticed people arguing facts, and it was just like, it sucked because I'm sitting here listening to a debate where people are sharing facts, and it's just like, no, you could assume that all of this person's facts are true, and it still doesn't get you to the conclusion. Let's talk about that, because otherwise it's just my facts are real and your facts aren't real, and then it's just nothing happens. Yeah.
Okay.
But
so what was your stance on that then? Like, if all the facts were right, does his reasoning get him to that conclusion?
If you're asking me, I would say more or less. Yeah, I would say more or less. It's harder for me to. I don't think reasoning's always easy to know whether or not it is in fact sound, but from what I can tell, I would say.
Yeah. I don't.
Based
I don't
on
have
the
a
information
whole lot of...
provided is what I like to say. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
based on
best
the information
conclusion.
provided.
This is the best information I have at the time. I can totally be wrong, but yeah.
How does this conversation, now that you've had it, I know it got interrupted, but how does it change your perception of flat earthers in any way?
Well,
Not
I mean,
mine.
it's not that I like my perception of flat earthers is, um, that they believe something based on information, um, and their own biases and reasonings just as our own. Um, and that is what it is, but that's with anything, whether or not it's true is another question,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, for me personally, like the biggest reason against flat Earth for me is why would there be an agenda? The shape of the
Yeah.
Earth is a really trivial detail to most people. Like if I was raised my whole life that Earth was a square, I wouldn't care. Like if I was raised my whole life that it was a trapezoid, I wouldn't care. Like I can't think of any shape. The information itself just seems like even if I discovered that I was wrong about it, it would be interesting that I was wrong about it, but it wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I need to rethink my life now. So I don't understand why the conspiracy would be there in the first place.
Mhm.
I agree. That's usually what I go with too. Yeah, like looking at the amount of people that use that are using the globe model, it wouldn't make sense to me that all of them are mistaken or lying. It's used in so many things. Like we were just talking about architecture. Like I've talked to people who build bridges that say that they have to think about that stuff. I've talked to military snipers who say that they have to sometimes accommodate for the Coriolis effect. So, but I'm also, this isn't the thing that I've read the most on. I used to work at an airport and I used to talk to pilots about the things that they have to accommodate for when it comes to that, weather patterns, and hurricanes and tornadoes. They generally move in different directions, but that's not, again, that what I just said there is probably a good 80% of my knowledge on the topic. So I can't go much more than that. So,
Right.
And we had Indio back, but I mean, it is getting late. I
Oh.
wanted to check in with Sushi.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is getting late. They disappeared. If I think it's fair enough to bring them back because we were just talking about them.
Okay.
Okay. I'll get out of here. All right.
All right. Well, hey, nice chatting with you, Humanity.
Nice chatting with you.
Hey, man.
See you
Thanks
around.
for stopping in.
Yep.
Let me.
You're gonna ping them, yeah. I think it would be fair enough because we were just talking about them. They should be able to voice it. Their
What is it,
rebuttal.
Indio? Why is it just not showing up?
007. It doesn't show up on StreamYard for some reason when you at somebody.
I'm just tapping it, typing it into the YouTube.
Okay. Somebody had asked a question. Pointed out as here we go. A good thing to discuss with empiricists is scientific process. What do smart people disagree with them think?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very good point, right?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna write a informal paper on this because I want to challenge myself, but the thought process, because I do for a lot of things that someone said earlier that they were sheeple, and I was kind of saying I am actually sheeple too when it comes to anything scientific or academic. I tend to, if there is a large body of experts saying this is the best answer, I'm usually like that's my best guess then too. Like,
yeah.
But
I think to some extent we're all quote unquote appealing to authority because we can't be experts. We can't all be experts. But the thing is, we don't. It's not an appeal to authority because we don't need to understand everything, right? The same people that tell me the Earth is round, also can do things like engineer the internet or bridges or space shuttles or all the other stuff that continue. They're like the beliefs are not a belief. It's all compounded on the other beliefs that I have, and there's so much other data. Like Indio had said about, it's not just one thing. It's a whole lot of things, and it's not any one that would be. But maybe there is a foundational thing that would make me re-question all of that.
Yeah, that's something I think we could have rephrased to him, though, was to ask him if his confidence, which, oh, there he is.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
I'll let you click it because I think we both clicked it at the same time last time.
Okay, sorry about that.
Hey, welcome
Indio,
back.
hey, what's up?
Hey, I'm back. This app crashed my browser, crashed my whole computer, as a matter of fact. But
Oh, jeez.
I'm back. I just
Sorry to hear
listened to
that.
Brenda and the other guy. I feel like I hogged the mic, so.
No,
You're good, man.
They didn't have any claims. This show's about talking about claims, so that's the
Yeah,
important part.
I know Brenda very well. Brenda's been in this topic for quite a long time.
Oh, okay.
I'm not gonna. I could pick on Brenda, but I'm not gonna. Like some of the ridiculous things Brenda said. Not in your show, but just. She said a shoe was an independent variable one time.
Yeah, if we could avoid criticisms of people, please.
Can I criticize what she said? I'm not like in a negative way, just like what she said. She made a lot of claims about like the psychological analysis of what flat earthers do and what motivates them. I just think that that's tacky to me. I mean, when I was listening to her, she was like, "Well, flat earthers, they want to feel special," and like, come on, man. You're not a psychiatrist and you don't play one on TV either. So,
my brain might have turned off for that because I don't recall her saying that.
Yeah,
I mean, she was just.
My bad.
She makes a lot of comments about like what motivates flat earthers and what we think or why we think it. And that's
I think there was
some
common ground between you two because she was saying that you were talking about the head of the Flat Earth Society and you kind of seeing him as some sort of grifter or Poe, and I think she's open to that idea. That I don't think she was claiming that all flat earthers are like that. I think she was just saying some are, and I think you would probably agree with her on that.
Yeah, but then when she said it's like the Catholics versus the Protestants, still, I have never met a flat earther in the Flat Earth Society. I mean, maybe I'm an outlier, but I doubt it.
Gotcha. Well, I'm an amateur on this stuff, so I didn't know that you knew Brenda or that there was even the circles were that tight knit. So
I've talked to Brenda lots of times, so it's been a while, but anyway.
Gotcha.
And the second guy, so I want to just address two things. I'm going to do the second thing first. So the why would they lie thing? I mean, we get this all the time. It's not an uncommon thing. Yeah, I want to know too. Why would they lie? Like, if I had the answers, I'd be them, right?
Yeah. Well, that's not the only option either, is there? Right?
Well, I mean,
they could just be mistaken.
It's like, yeah, exactly. And that's my position. Like, why? Like, if you were wrong, would you admit it? Like, oh yeah, I've been wrong for 500 years. We took all this money, we built all this stuff, and yeah, we were wrong. Sorry. Oops. Can I keep my job at the university? I don't want to be fired. You know what I mean? Like, there's reputations, there's money involved, there's lots of reasons other than like some grand conspiracy. I particularly don't believe in some grand conspiracy. I'm not like one of those people. I'm not. I don't think flat Earth is a grand conspiracy. I just think that they're just wrong. Most of the people I've talked to about this topic, professionals, I've talked to people that think they put satellites in space. Okay. And people that have PhDs, most people that are highly educated, when I ask them questions about why they think the Earth is a globe, they give the same answers that a ninth grader give. They have like when they were like in ninth grade, just like all of us, right? Third grade, ninth grade, and they said Earth's a globe. Gravity turns everything into a ball. Gravity makes everything orbit around the sun, right? All these ideas. We never learned anything more about it past that, and because we accepted that idea. And even the professionals, PhDs, they have accepted it too. They don't know anything beyond like what most people know. right? Just like what they learned in high school or elementary school. They don't. It's not like they
So,
teach Globe Earth 101 in university, right? Like they're not teaching that in class,
uh,
so everybody has the same information.
so we're not talking about people that aren't here. I'd like to bring me into the picture because you
Yeah,
had said
yeah,
about
yeah.
the satellites. So I have taken a picture of a satellite through my telescope, and I've seen a satellite with my naked eyes. I've actually communicated with the International Space Race Station because I'm a ham radio operator. Um, and also with the satellites, again, being a ham radio operator, because when I was doing satellite communication, I've talked to other ham radio operators through these satellites. Um, like, how do you explain like that to me? Like my experience of seeing a satellite in space.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can't tell where it is just from looking at it. Like you can look at it and you see a dot in the sky, right? You can't say that's 300 miles away or that's 400 miles away, and that's this big. You can't tell from just looking at it. That's not
Well, I
possible.
mean, so like hearing it, right? So like when I'm communicating, when I had communicate
Yeah,
with both the ISS and the
yeah, these are
satellite.
two separate things, though, right? The communication, that's a separate
What?
component
No,
versus
no,
the
I'm
seeing it,
using
right?
a measurement system so you can tell how far it is, because that was your point.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Doppler shift, right?
Uh,
So are you familiar with the Doppler
yeah,
shift?
yeah. I know what Doppler shift is.
Okay, so for others that are listening in, the Doppler shift is basically, that sound when a car goes past you or an ambulance goes past you and it goes, "Vroom," right? Because like the pressure waves get compressed when it's coming towards you, and when it's going for you, it stretches out. Same thing happens with radio waves. So when I'm talking to something that's far away and it has to propagate through space and to something that's moving, I have to shift frequencies in order to maintain the channel of communication, right? So it's a way of, that's accounts for this time or this distance. And I'm curious how, like,
So let me
yeah,
ask you how this is done, like technically.
sure.
So is it
Hmm.
automated or are you doing it by hand? Are you like tuning it by hand until it comes
The
in?
radio? Yeah,
Yeah, the
like
Doppler tuning
physically,
for the.
yeah, physically
Okay.
having to change the knob, yeah.
So, okay. I don't know where to begin. So the idea that you need a satellite to communicate over far distances. Um,
Oh, you don't need to. It's just one of the ways,
yeah. So
or
there's
like,
a there,
I've
there's a bunch of ways I can approach this. That's
yeah.
what I'm trying to get at.
Hmm.
But I just want to like lay a foundation. So there's an idea that there's a big ball in the way, so I can't talk like far away. Right. That's the idea. Right. So I need a satellite to communicate. Well, you're talking about. So we know that we can send radio waves. So the farthest I know of is 10,000 miles. So in 1918, Marconi set up a system where they talked from uh, UK to Australia in 1918. Okay, so that's a long time ago. There was no satellites. The idea of satellites wasn't even invented. And the reason they came up with, they figured out to do this is because they were picking up radio traffic from Berlin in Australia. So they set up their own system to communicate. Okay, so um, but it's intermittent, and the reason it's intermittent is because it frequency hops, right? So you tuning it for the different
Yeah, so
frequencies is doing the same thing, right?
well, it's two different frequency bands, right?
Yeah,
So depending on the frequency band of the radio waves, depends on the propagation method of the waves.
yeah,
So like HF frequency, and depending on what frequency you're on, it depends on which level of the ionosphere the radio waves will bounce or reflect off of, with some level of distortion because it's not a perfect reflector. Then some radio frequencies, like for instance the frequencies that I communicated with satellites, are only line of sight, where they don't reflect off of the ionosphere because the wavelength is too short.
I mean, yes, that's the story, right? But
Hmm.
this radio
And it
propagation,
explains all the observations. That's why I'm curious, like how you
you have
explain it. Yeah.
well, the thing is, you have no way of knowing if it's bouncing or not bouncing. they've told you this is line of sight, right? You said, hey, this is line of sight. In this other way that's not line of sight, it's reflecting off this ionosphere. Well, this ionosphere idea is ad hoc. It's post demonstration, right? So they did the radio communications, and they're like, well, Earth's a globe. This can't possibly work. Why could this possibly work? Well, it's going to reflect off of the ionosphere. We're going to be surrounded in ions, right? Energetic particles that are reflecting radio waves. And they have to invoke things. And I actually brought this up earlier that there's things like negative indexes of refractions, and radio waves get ducted into the ionosphere and travel around the world. Right? There's no way to actually verify any of this, and there's no way to actually. You can't even make predictions about this. I actually operated. Well, I mean, if I said, okay, I have a because I used shortwave radio when I was younger, and I said, okay, Moscow is broadcasting a radio signal. I want to know when I can turn my radio on and hear Moscow. There's no equations or formulas or physics or anything I can do to figure out when I can pick up Moscow's broadcast, right? It's just like I picked up Moscow's broadcast. We're on a big globe. There's a whole bunch of Earth in the way. That's not possible. So it must be reflecting off of something in the sky. So it's what I would call an ad hoc hypothesis that was invented ex post facto. You understand what I'm saying? It's after the fact. These hypotheses of how radio waves propagate, right? Oh, these ones go through, these other ones don't. They're not experimentally demonstrated, right? They didn't like go in the lab and shoot radio waves at a plasma and bounce radio waves off of it. It's, we do this, we know it's a globe, there must be some reason why it works. And we can come up with some physics model to describe how it works, but that physics model in no way can be tested, right? You can't experimentally test it because you can't make a prediction. Right, because that's how physics works. You have a model. The model makes a prediction. You go out. You make the observation in reality. You see if the observation matches reality. You can't actually match your observations up to reality, and they would probably say, "Well, it's because of the chaotic nature of the ionosphere," and because. And here's another unexplained thing about the ionosphere. So why does it propagate further at night than during the day? Right?
Well, it depends on the wavelength that is utilized. So it's not that it is necessarily propagating a different length. It's that the lower frequency radio waves are longer, and those propagate better at night. So you get longer single hop distances. Whereas with multi-hop of higher frequencies, well, it has to hop more. So it has to then have ground reflection as well as ionospheric reflections. So there's greater path loss, which is all calculatable.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, say it's calculatable. I don't know. It's very accurate.
I mean, like I mean, maybe that's a good place to break things off then. I know it's getting late and it's 23.
I wanted to make sure I was following the conversation. Were we still talking about radio waves there at the end?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we weren't talking about anything else.
Well, it was relating to flat Earth.
Right.
He wants to know how he could talk to satellites. What he thinks.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I heard that. It was just I was trying to follow your conversation on predictions and.
I mean, because there's, like I said, there's a radio wave propagation was done before the idea of satellites existed, further than was predicted by the globe model, and there's multiple instances of this. One particular one is called the Knickerbein bombing beams that the Germans used during World War II. It was where they crossed two beams over England, and when you entered, like the one beam made beeps, the other one made dashes, and when you heard beeps and dashes at the same time, you were in the cross section of the beams, and that's when you're supposed to drop your bombs. That's something like 390 kilometers.
Yeah, and I guess just
so there's all these predictions of how radio waves should propagate. after the fact, after this was known in practice, this ionospheric model was approached.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, going back to it, as someone who's only heard bits and pieces of this before, I just wonder if the only explanation is that they were wrong about it being a globe, or they just like learned something. Like, is it also possible that they just learned something new?
Well, I mean, yes, that's a possibility.
Okay, I was wondering.
But okay, but it ultimately comes down to, is it testable, right? So
Yeah.
if I want to falsify the ionospheric model through an experiment, how could I actually do that? Like
Falsify?
falsify. Because I mean, because you're supposed to falsify your hypothesis and theories.
Right. Yeah. I'm
You're
just
not supposed to actually prove them right. So
yeah. Usually with falsification, though, I'm always thinking like there's oftentimes more than one way to falsify it. So I could think of a few ways to potentially falsify it.
I mean, such as
one would be to send something up there that would interact with the ionosphere based on what we know about it, and see if it interacts with it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that would be possibly one way. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's got any ion samples floating around.
I don't personally know.
But no. I mean, can I just something I kind of didn't cover, which I probably should have in the beginning when I and I'll make it brief because I know you guys want to get the hell out of here. So the globe isn't just like the globe model. I heard you talk about nebulas and that you've seen them with a telescope.
I can share some pictures with you.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen all the pictures and stuff. Like, there's very little you can tell through a telescope just looking through it, right? Just I see a little smudge. Like the theory of what nebulas were changed like 5 times in the last 200 years. So like nobody really knew what they were, and then they had a theory, and then they had another theory, then they had another theory, then they had another theory. Today's like the currently accepted theory. It's a bunch of gases, right?
And that is true. But science goal is to disprove itself, because only when we're wrong is when we learn. So science doesn't say this is what is. It says, based on the current information, this is the most accurate picture we have. And then when we get more information, we say, that wasn't quite accurate. Let's update. And now this is the most accurate image that we have.
Yeah, but it's fundamentally imagination.
Right? You definitely need imagination. I think we agree on that.
Yeah.
But if I look at a nebula through a telescope and I can conjecture about what that is, fundamentally, I can't even test my hypothesis of what that is, right? At a fundamental level, I can't. It's not testable.
It depends on what specific claim you're making about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's composition.
How
far away it is, how old it is, all those things, right? Now there's a methodology they claim to know these things. Spectroscopy, but that's never been proven to be accurate anywhere outside of the lab, and there's problems with that because there's, a lot of these stuff I know is technical, and not a lot of flat earthers are like me, where they are super nerd technical, like look into like the actual what they did experimentally, like what their assumptions were, what their source of error were. Not every I would say most flat earthers are not like me. I would say that I'm a little bit different. But what I was trying to get at is like these ideas about the sky. We have ideas about space and what's in the sky, right? They had ideas hundreds of years ago, and now we think that somehow our ideas are correct. Right? Now we're correct. But fundamentally, at the bottom of all this, if you get the Earth's a globe, well, it's more than just that. It's more than just the Earth's a globe, right? There's a Big Bang story, so you have a creation of the universe story. You have evolution, which is how man was created story. So a lot of the things that were once part of religion are part of what we call modern science. But the evidence that we have on a personal level is the same as was given in the past by a priest, right? We take it on faith from some third-party stranger that they have all the answers and that they're too technical for us to really know, and that they're going to give it to us, and we're going to base our existential reality off of that. That, to me, I think I have no problem with people doing that. But I just think people should know what they're really doing, instead of saying, well, this is uniquely objectively known and everything else is just trash. I, I, I think people need to put modern science in the appropriate category.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I want to make sure that I'm understanding you, and I think I do. But just to be clear, you're not saying that because an idea or an argument comes from a long time ago or from priests that it's necessarily incorrect. Is that correct?
Not really. I'm saying that there's no difference, I guess, at a rational philosophical level between the modern claims, if you drill down right into the fundamentals of why, like, say, an individual like yourself or your brother, your sister, your friend, your family, right, on why they believe something versus believing in the Bible or the Koran or Buddhism, right? The fundamental, like, rational justification for it is faith in a third party. Do you understand?
Okay.
You understand
Yeah,
what
I
I'm saying?
do. So just to reiterate, I maybe I phrased it incorrectly. You're not saying that because something comes from a priest that makes it incorrect, right? Like if something can a priest can say something and that thing be true.
Well, I mean, yeah, what a priest said,
Okay.
true, of course.
And the same thing with
Even a
like
broke clock
history,
is
like
right twice a day, man. So
sure, yeah. And the same thing with like history, like somebody could have said something 4,000 years ago,
yeah,
and that thing could still. Okay, all right.
yeah,
Just
it
making
could,
sure we're on the
yeah,
same
it
page
could
on
still
that.
be true. Yeah, certainly. I'm
Okay.
just saying that the rationalization differs a little from what's commonly railed against religion, as in this is faith because you heard it from a priest and you're just listening to a priest and you're just doing what they say because they say they wrote it down in a book. I mean, there's literally, I don't know if you've ever seen this skit from It's Always Sunny in
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
I show it in my
Yeah,
classrooms. I teach
yeah, I
research
think
and
it's
argumentation. I
hilarious.
show it.
Well,
It is. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I do. I offer. I don't know if you've heard of argument from ignorance before, but I always show
yeah.
that as a counter video too, where he talks about some of the. But
Yeah,
that's
it's
beside the
not a
point.
valid. Listen, you're correct. Argument from ignorance is not a valid refutation, but
No, I
I.
meant there's a YouTube channel called Argument from Ignorance. I'm not saying that
Oh,
that is an argument from ignorance.
oh. I mean, it
Yeah,
kind of is, right? But in a
it
way,
could be. Yeah, potentially. Um, I have one other question. I think sushi's probably draining here too, so I don't I don't want to
sorry,
keep doing.
sushi.
I had one more, and then I'm sure we'll do this again, and it would be great to talk to you again. But I just wanted to go back to one thing because I never got to ask this, and I was curious because of the way it was phrased. But at one point, you had said that the Chicago skyline was 52 miles away across Lake Michigan, and you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with even I think that the Boston Harbor, and I think the best way to phrase it is if you found out that there was an explanation for why that occurred or that there was some mistake that happened, if those two reasons were taken away, would your confidence change? Not that your
Oh yeah.
position would change. Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah. If someone could
Okay.
if someone could actually demonstrate the fundamental, like, so if they're okay, so the claim generally is, like I said, that the Chicago is an optical illusion being refracted up over the horizon. Yes. If someone could show that that is actually a plausible explanation using something resembling the scientific method as opposed to just saying it, right? Because they
Yeah.
just say it. If you look in the peer-reviewed literature at this explanation, there's no evidence for it. Like, I'm not just saying there's literally, you look, there's no experimental data, there's no measurement data, there's no nothing. It's just a model that doesn't make any predictions that are accurate. And they say, well, we can't actually do any of that because the weather, it's complex, and
Yeah, I was gonna
so
say I don't know how extensive. Like, have you looked, into the
the data is actually against it.
meteorological data? Like, have you looked in any of the meteorological
Yeah.
journals? Okay,
Oh
I
yeah,
haven't. So
I've
I'm
gone back
wondering.
to like 150 years of
Gotcha.
of peer-reviewed literature, and the actual testing, what's available for testing has gotten better since the invention of the laser. So they've actually tried to quantify this empirically, and it's nowhere near what they say it is. So there is scintillation, right? So we see stars, they scintillate, right? If you look at a light that's far away, it seems like it bounces around a little bit. There is um, scintillation, right? Because of turbulence. But there's no bending light around curves and seeing over hills and seeing over mountains, and like it doesn't work like that. But that's how they say it works. But there's, like I said, there's no experimental evidence or that shows that it works like that. There's not even small scale demonstrations. The only way you can
So
even
then,
get like the bend in just the regular air is to use like an extreme situation, like a 200-degree hot plate
okay.
and shining a laser over it, right? So that's an unrealistic temperature gradient, right? You don't see that in the air. Surface of the Earth is not 200 degrees. You
Okay,
see what I'm
so
saying?
the experiments surrounding Snell's law, those are not accurate to
No,
what's
not so.
happening in the atmosphere.
Snell's law is actually not applicable in this situation because Snell's law is an isotropic medium with a well-defined boundary. They would use something called Fermat's principle, which is the principle of least time, right? So the air is supposed to be a gradient.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a well-defined, like you got air and water.
In density, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a gradient of density. So Snell's law is actually doesn't even work mathematically. So they use something called Fermat's principle for what's called a gradient index medium. And
Okay.
and like you can you can make models that will that can quote unquote in a theoretical world, in a simulated world, work, but they don't actually work in the real world, right? So we
Gotcha.
go out and we actually do the experiment to test where we like measure the known variables, right? Which is very hard to actually measure over a full optical path. But there are some experiments that actually test this stuff and they just don't match. One that comes to mind was it's called the multi-wavelength uh, turbulence. Multi-wavelength. I forget the name off the top of my head. Anyway, it was done by the U.S. Air Force. So they shown a laser, 3 lasers, as a matter of fact, from one Hawaiian island to the other, right? From the
Mhm.
tops, right? So they have there's there's a what do you call it? An observatory at the on one of the islands on Mauna Kea, if I'm saying that right. So they shine 3 lasers. So because refraction itself is if you ever seen a prism, right? The prism will separate the colors. Each wavelength of electromagnetic radiation refracts differently at different rates. So what they did was they took 3 lasers of different wavelengths and shone across the island, or from one island to the other. Now, if you punch it, they did this. So you put it into the model, right? It shows that the lasers, because if there was standard refraction, the lasers would be separated by like 20 meters, right? So spatially, you'd have one laser higher than the bottom laser with one laser in the middle, and the separation of all of them would be 20 meters. Well, what they actually did in the actual test, they had a 3.4 meter telescope, and all the lasers went into the telescope simultaneously. So since
Okay.
this is called dispersion, right? So dispersion is a component of refraction. So if you can't measure any dispersion, there is no refraction. It's just not happening because it's not possible. They're intrinsically related. They've actually tried to make surveying devices that use dispersion to measure whether there's refraction, and they actually don't work because they don't measure anything.
Okay.
So because in tunnels, we'll get the background on that. So if you want to survey a tunnel, right, because it's underground, you have to really accurately survey because usually they drill from both sides, right? They tunnel from both sides and they want to meet up. So you have to survey really accurately. And so the Swiss try to develop different types of surveying equipment, and this is one of the pieces of equipment they tried to develop, and it didn't like capture. Well, I mean, it didn't work because their formulas didn't work basically. Because you have to have a model to figure out like. So you have the instrument. The instrument makes a measurement, but you have to have a model from which to interpret the measurements out of, and the measurements didn't actually match up with. Well, the measurements were fine. It was just that their model didn't reflect reality.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you, Indio, for
I'm
the
sorry for being
conversation.
talking so much.
No, you're all right. You're all right. We'll just, we'll have to continue it. We're doing this every week, so I would love for you to call back at some other point and talk about this more. It's just my eyeballs are burning right now. So
Yeah, I mean, you're probably if you have other flat earthers, you're probably not going to get someone like me. I mean, I'm a little
yeah,
odd.
yeah.
I'm an oddball. Um,
Well, I'm open to talking to to everybody. I don't know. I've watched Witsit before. He's kind of been my current obsession, but
yeah, I know Witsit.
I don't know what you think about him. So
I know Witsit really good, even though I haven't talked to him for a while. I mean, I know him real good.
okay,
So, I mean, I
all
like
right,
Witsit. I wouldn't say I agree with everything he says. Plus, he's like into that ether stuff, which I'm not a big. I would say I'm not a big fan of. I'm kind of agnostic about it. I don't think there's really any evidence for or against it. It's one of those things where like it's not figured out yet. So like, I don't even know
gotcha.
why you should talk about it.
All right,
I mean, there's a whole book about it called "History and Theories of Eastern Electricity," going back to the times of the Romans, and like basically it's a 700 pages, and like no one, him saying, no one figured it out yet. You know what I mean?
gotcha.
Like I'm not reinventing that wheel.
Yeah, that'd be a whole other conversation. I'm sure we could
Yeah,
have in the
yeah.
future, or maybe I'll have it with Witsit
I mean,
one day.
have it with I could get him on here. I mean, for real. I mean,
Yeah, I mean that would I think be a challenge given our methods, but I would one that it'd be one that I would be open to trying. So
awesome. It was
certainly
great
feel free
talking to you
to.
guys. You guys are. Thank you for listening and letting me talk. I mean,
You too, Indio.
I
It
get
was
like
nice
a
chatting
lot
with
of
you.
yeah, Sushi.
Have a
It's
good
good
one.
talking to you too. And you know, I don't know if I'm being abrasive. I'm from the city, so like sometimes they come across that way, like
No,
a
you're
cocky
good.
No,
asshole.
no,
So
not
so
how I would describe it.
okay, man. It's
All
great
right,
talking to you.
have a good night.
Hey, awesome. Have a great night too. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
All
right.
right. Well,
Oof.
that is all that I have in the tank for tonight.
Yes, certainly.
We did ask for it though, so that's
We did, yeah. Well, you know what? It was only fair because we were talking about him, so it gave him
yeah,
the opportunity.
that's true.
Well, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. I had a great time.
Yeah, me too. I loved it. I think this is one of the better ones. This is definitely. I think you can look forward to. At least I'll be here or behind the scenes once a week, probably on Sundays. So
Okay.
that in the future, and Sushi, I hope to
Yeah.
see you around. If you
Heck
want to do
yeah.
it again too, I think that'd be great.
Definitely. I'd love to do it again. Try to get some promotional material out to get some more people in here.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect call on that. By the way, you did that navigating beliefs when Brenda was asking for it like perfectly. You dropped in at the perfect time. So
Oh,
great marketer.
thank you. Hey, you know, if you wanna sell a business or you wanna have a successful business, you gotta know when to promote.
Yep.
Yeah, shameless plug. You got it. Talking about shameless plugs, make sure to check out Sushi Thinks on YouTube as well as Sushi Thinks Twice. 2 separate channels, one for shorter content, one for longer content. And, you know, while I'm shamelessly plugging, also check out Sushi Adventure Time for me hiking in the woods because, you know, the woods. Who doesn't like the woods?
When you need that downtime from SC, you can just watch the videos of nature. I've seen some; they're great. You should go check them out. Check out Honest Ape 42 as well. That's gonna change, so I'm kind of hesitant to say what the channel name is because it might change in 2 months. But it'll be Honest Ape or some version of that, and also have to do better about putting out videos anyway. So, all right, everybody, it was fun. Thank you for tuning in.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Love y'all.
Good night.
Wave until everybody leaves.